Hello, little Smokies. Happy Monday. I hope you guys are all having a great week so far. I am so excited for today's stream. I let you guys know on Friday that I was going to be taking the weekend off to really lock in and focus on this one. So I've got a really fun episode planned for you guys. We are going to be doing the cult Iceberg. So this was actually recommended by you guys on my first day back over at this channel. So I definitely had to deliver. This is something I love covering. I research tons of cults. I watch tons of documentaries. Covering this right up my alley. Thank you, XYZ, for joining Hot Dog Gang. Everyone who said they're excited, I'm just as excited. So let's go ahead and before we waste any time, let's get right into this. So the first important thing to do when I don't close out my docket, by the way, because like how did I literally just close my docket out? I'm like so ready for this stream. I just like fat fingered closing out my docket. Beautiful. Amazing. So lovely. But the first thing that I definitely want to do is talk about like what makes a cult. So the most important thing is pulling up like the actual dictionary definition of a cult. So we're going to pull up like the literal definition to describe this to you guys. So a cult is broadly defined as a group of people held together by an intense, unquestioning devotion to a specific person, idea, or religious system. Now, this is very important to note because some of these cults that we are going to get into might not come off as like what you would normally categorize as like an average cult because they might not necessarily worship just a person. They might have a very strong belief system that they uphold. So we'll get into that. But the way that we are going to organize these cults is they're going to get more bizarre and more crazy as we go. So starting off, they're definitely going to be a little bit odd, but they're going to be more on the funnier end, not really on the side of like people dying. There's going to be way more deaths as we get into it, so think of it that way as well. Another important part, in modern usage, it also refers to an insular, coercive organization led by a charismatic figure that uses psychological manipulation to control its members. Now, that comes from the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition for y'all. So that is exactly how we're going to be categorizing these cults. Everything that I've researched today, whether or not it's been loosely defined as a cult or not, falls under this umbrella. Some of the most important characteristics of a cult, and there's 4. So at least 2 of these, if not all 4, apply to all of the things that we're going to be talking about today. Number 1 is the coercive or destructive cult. So this is the type that like basically has authoritative leadership. It has a lot of exploitation. It kind of also falls under the branch of like, you know, when people talk about like pyramid schemes and MLMs being cult-like, that's what they're talking about, like the coerciveness. Then there's also the new religious movement types, which are more of the hippie types of cults. So that's like a different categorization. Then you have like historical ritualistic cults, which are more like defined as like I guess like witchcraft, you could say, would fall underneath there. We'll talk about a story a little bit later that actually involves some witchcraft. Or cultural devotion. So maybe like a race-related type of devotion or like ethnic group, even like cultural religious. So there's all different types, but we are going to explore all 4 of these today. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start off with, I gotta show you guys. So I made a little slideshow to run through all of the ones I have for you guys today, and we've got 20 to make it through. So get ready. Let me go ahead and show my little slideshow with you guys. Boom. Oh, that's sized all types of funky and weird. Let me size that all better. I think I had it sized for Instagram the last time I used it, which is probably why. There we go. Boom. So we're going to be starting off with the John From cargo cult. So this one is actually one of my personal favorites in the cult world because I honestly think that this one doesn't harm anybody. It just is really interesting. So the John From movement started in an indigenous region of the island of Tana. I might be pronouncing that wrong. It might be Tana. Tana is what I'm going to call it. Tana in Vanuatu. I cannot pronounce country names for the life of me, so I probably won't pronounce the island name that much. But this starts off on a very indigenous-based island. So John From is the person that they worship in this cult. And if you don't know what a cargo cult is often a cult that forms from these indigenous regions that idolizes a figure or a country or something who brought them some aid during a military time, which is actually exactly how this cult started. So in the 1990s, there were reportedly over 5,000 members of the John From movement. However, belief in John From is in its decline as of 2022, and there's actually only less than 500 people left in this cult, but it is still up and running. So the rest of the island has been mostly converted by Christian missionaries who came in because it's not like a tourist area. It's a spot called Sulphur Bay, but that's where a lot of the Christian missionaries will come in to bring aid to the island, and through there they brought in a lot of their religious practices and converted a lot of people. The religion originally centered on John From arose originally probably around the 1930s, but people are saying that it could have started all the way back in the 1910s because there's so many different stories about how this started. The interesting thing is originally it started by a guy from the name of John Broome, supposedly. So this is one of the three stories. So John Broome was believed by followers to return from a distant land to sweep away the white colonials and return riches to the islands. But that's one version. In the next version, it's a native man whose real name was Manahi, who used the alias John From and began appearing among the native people of the island dressed in a Western-style coat and assuring people that he would bring them aid. Now, because of that story, we will get into a little bit later about some of the people who kind of imitate John From and will go to this island and like act like they are John From and be like, I am your god, because it does happen. So beyond that, others contend that John From was apparently a spirit vision induced by kava, which is a plant that has mild psychoactive properties. This John From promised the dawn of a new age in which all white people, including missionaries, would depart the new Hebrides, leaving their goods and property for the native Melanesians. Okay, and for the people who are like, what are new Hebrides? That's like the religion that they kind of, or not like religion, but that's like the, I guess what they called themselves when they first settled there, but then they started changing as things went on, right? Okay, so then in 1941, this is where things get a little bit interesting. This is where beef starts on the island with the John From cult. So in 1941, followers of John From rid themselves of their money in a frenzy of spending, left the missionary churches, schools, villages, and plantations, and moved inland to start doing traditional feasts, dances, rituals, and the European people who were like helping this island were not fucking with this at all. They saw this as like these people trying to almost like take over what they were building there, right? So they found a Tananese man who was calling himself John From, humiliated him publicly, imprisoned him, and exiled him from the actual island along with all the original leaders of this John From cargo cult. That's how serious the Europeans were taking this shit, okay? And then despite this effort, interestingly enough, the movement actually started to gain popularity throughout the 1940s, and 500,000 American troops got stationed in Vanuatu, in the island, during World War II, right? So then they brought them in like enormous amounts of cargo, enormous amounts of supplies. So in their eyes, their prophecy had come true to some extent. Like they were thinking they were correct, okay? Like their shit, everything they believed in was right. So now they're getting like a mass participation from the island. And you're also getting the men from the island who are joining to help the army fight. You had like a huge population of the men there joining to help them. And then after the war happened, the departure of Americans made these people believe so heavily, like after they left, things were still going good for them because of everything, like, you know, that the Americans brought for them. So they started worshiping John Frum heavier and made landing strips, which is what you're seeing here down in the bottom, like middle part. You're gonna see the planes that they would make planes out of the items that they had on the island to like worship as like almost idols of John Frum. And then in 1957, this is where things also get a little bit interesting. The John Frum movement created the Tana Army, which was a non-violent fake army that organized military-style parades. So when you see them in the bottom right corner of this slideshow wearing that military garb, no, that's not real military. That's what they dress like for the parades because they fucking love America. They are so convinced, this John Frum cult, that Americans are like it, right? They love everything about America over there. So they call themselves the TAUSA Army. They carry bamboo guns, which is what you're seeing in the top right and on the bottom left. And they also carve, like, out of bamboo, weapons like machetes, chainsaws, like what you're seeing right. That is a literal chainsaw he made out of bamboo, bro. That is fucking impressive as shit, you gotta admit. But eventually, the government got a little bit iffy about this whole parade situation that was going on because even though the military was fake, it kind of came off like they were carrying around weapons. The whole thing was a little suspect, and they were getting closer and closer to, like, where the Presbyterians were doing their missions, and the government was like, hell no. So they shut that down, but then the Tana Army did not fuck with that. So they barricaded themselves inside their headquarters with real guns, not fake ones. And then eventually the leaders of the Tana Army got arrested and jailed on the island. I don't know how it escalated to that point, but it did. It got all the way there, all because they just wanted to have their little parade for John Frum. Now, thankfully enough, the government is not too crazy, and they have made John Frum Day an official holiday on the island. And every year on February 15th, which is the date that followers believe that John Frum will return, they do a celebration. They have a parade for him. And they actually have interviewed people on this island who are part of the cult. There's a guy named David Attenborough, who I'm sure you guys know the name of, who's been there quite a bit, who's done a lot of interviews, and asked one of the followers why he was still waiting for the cargo after it had been 19 years since it was still promised. And I honestly feel like this is one of the nicest things I've heard in all of these cult stories I've researched today. The member said, if you can wait 2,000 years for Jesus Christ to come and no one come, then I can wait more than 19 years for John. That's a real one, bro. He's dedicated. He is dedicated. And then in the late 1970s, John Frum followers had also opposed the imminent creation of, like, a united nation. So the entire, like, island had kind of been split. Remember when I was talking about, like, Sulphur Bay before? Especially in that area, like, where the missionaries were, it was split off from, like, the indigenous regions of the island. And the John Frum cult didn't want this, like, unity to happen because they feared that by unifying where the missionaries were with them, that they would have to embrace, like, modern civilization, which they weren't about doing, because that was a big part of, like, what they had to do to start being part of this cargo cult, was they gave away all of their worldly possessions. They spent all of their money that one day to devote their lives to John Frum. So they weren't fucking with that. They got into, like, a war with the government, but now it has its own political party, actually. It's called, now I'm gonna butcher this, Nagriamel, and it's led by Song Kisapai. Probably butchering that. And the party is celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2007. So it's been cooking. They have their own political stuff, and they're going. And apparently they've been quoted over the years saying John Frum is their God and their Jesus, and he will eventually return. Now, this is the only cult actually that has a little bit of a something of a video wise, because I really do think that this is interesting to show you guys. So let me actually get this pulled up over where I have my my slideshow, so that I can show you guys, because this is a video of them singing in this cult, and it's really interesting, really interesting. It's so cool. So most of the sounds you're hearing and why I think this is so interesting are made by their mouths. Other than clapping and guitars and like they have occasional like bongo drums here and there, most of these sounds are being made by their mouths. Well, if you guys want to check out any more of the John From cult, they actually have quite a bit of visitors who come see them. So they do have, like, you can look up videos on YouTube of, like, interviews of the John From cult, people who have been there. Sorry, one moment. I need to look for something. No, I don't think so. People who have, like, been there as, like, missionaries, people who have been there to, like, explore the music. They'll let people stay with them. They're very welcoming people. So for a cult, I would say we would put John From cult at the top of the iceberg, because they're just fun little guys, honestly. They just believe that this guy is going to come back and save them. And you know what? Maybe I hope one day he does. Now, next up, this one's a little bit interesting. Now, this one takes place in the U.S., and this one is one of the most mysterious ones on the list. This one has been loosely defined as a cult because there's not much known about it. Next up, we're going to be talking about Bohemian Grove. So the Bohemian Grove is a private campground that is covering 2,700 acres in Monte Rio, California. So this was founded all the way back in 1878, and it's always been promoted as a private gentleman's club. So each year in mid-July, they host an annual gathering that lasts more than 2 weeks. Attended and invited guests are the only people, it's only attended by the invited guests and political members, business members, and people from the arts. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. So like I said, it's a private club. Only active members and their guests can visit, and it is a whole process to get guests into this place. So guests have been known to include politicians, notable figures from other countries, celebrities, music artists, like anybody that you could think of that's like a notable figure who's a man has probably at one point in time either been invited to Bohemian Grove or been to Bohemian Grove. And if you guys have not, there was a movie that I watched recently. What was it called? I'll think about it. It's like the devil on the stage or something like that. It's a Hulu original, but that movie is actually based on Bohemian Grove. So really recommend you watch that. But, so particularly they call it, by the way, the Midsummer Encampment, that mid-July meetup that they do. You will hear the words that they use to call these things, and you'll be like, what the hell? The number of guests is so strictly limited due to the small size of the faculties. So what you're seeing in this bottom right picture, not the one all the way to the right, but the colored one on the bottom right, that one is like the size of the whole Bohemian Grove. So that's like as many people as could fit there. And I'd say like by the picture, maybe like 200 something. Exact. Mrs. Moonlight said so much illegal shit proven to have happened here. That's the issue. is this place is hella under wraps, so it's like a little bit interesting. So the Bohemian Club is an all-male membership, and it includes artists, musicians, business leaders, government officials, former U.S. presidents. As you can see in the top right picture, this is Richard Nixon, okay? Richard Nixon was a member of Bohemian Grove. Just saying. There we go. Members can invite guests to the Grove for either the Spring Jinx or the July encampment. And those are the only times guests are allowed to come. And that's because that's a lot of times, they say, when the business and political dealings happen. So that's a little bit interesting. During these times, apparently they can also bring spouses, family, friends. But this is the only time. Although females and minors have to leave the property by 9 or 10 p.m. Very specific about that. After 40 years of membership, apparently you obtain something called an old guard status, which gives you reserved seating for all these events that take place. Because like I said, it's very limited and you can only go. And they do something called daily talks. So if you're an old guard, you can go to every single daily talk event. And apparently the club motto is "Weaving spiders, come not here," expressing an expectation that outside concerns and business dealings be set aside. Even though they say that they have business dealings take place there. It's really fucking weird. It says when gathered that groups generally observe this principle, although some business discussions occur, which is so weird. Like, that's what I'm saying. They'll have, like, these really strict rules, but, like, depending on, like, how high up you are, you can, like, kind of get around them. Okay. Since the founding of this place, their mascot has always been an owl, which is supposed to symbolize wisdom. And they have, in this top left picture, a 30-foot hollow owl statue made of concrete over steel that supports and stands at the head of the lake. And the statue was designed by, like, the 2-time president of the cult, and he also was a sculptor, so he just made it himself. This was made in the late 1920s, and since then, it has served as the backdrop for the Cremation of Care ceremony. What is that, you may ask? Well, the Cremation of Care ceremony is a theatrical production in which they have the members, some of them participate as actors, and then some of them are non-members. So it was originally set up with the plot of series Hijinks. Don't know what that is either. They never go into detail, okay? And after which, the spirit of care was slain by Jinx the hero. Don't know what any of that could fucking mean. They do not explain anything more than that. When I tell you this thing is mysterious and weird as fuck, that's all we know, is that apparently this care figure gets slain by Hijinks. And then the Cremation of Care was separated from the other Grove plays back in 1913. Why, you may ask? Because apparently this play is an exorcising of the demon to ensure the success of the ensuing 2 weeks. The ceremony takes place in front of this owl shrine, and then the moss-covered statue is supposed to simulate a natural rock formation, yet it holds electric audio equipment inside of the owl, where they have this guy named Walter speak as if he's the owl during the ceremony. What in the fuck? Rosebud said, is this the Freemasons in the USA? No, this is separate. This is a whole separate fucking thing. This is Bohemian Grove. You guys can look it up. It's a whole thing. There's actually not enough information about it out there, but those are the general things to note. It's said that a lot of the people who come here that are like big figures do end up becoming successful after this. It's like told as like an old wives' tale. Like, this is the place you go to sell your soul. So, I'll leave it up to you guys. But because there's not much known, nobody really knows if anything has happened to anybody here. There's rumors about alleged things that have happened, but the worst thing to have ever come out was they tried to take Bohemian Grove to court for wage issues, but then in court they determined that Bohemian Grove could not be classified as a workplace, so the case was thrown out. So that's Bohemian Grove. Now let's go ahead and jump into the next one. Now this one's a little bit interesting because this one is, I don't even know how to explain it. So this one's most definitely a cult, but I would say that they were more fucked over by their government than they did things wrong. We'll get into it though. So we're going to be talking about Falun Gong. So have you guys ever seen this purple poster right here? Or maybe any variation of it in your local area or somewhere where there's like a playhouse? This Shen Yun performance, you've probably seen this before. Well, surprisingly, this is actually a play put on by a cult that opposes the Communist Party in China. So, Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, as seen on one of the shirts down here, is a spiritual movement that was founded in 1992 by Li Hongzhi, and it combines meditation and moral philosophy, but it is highly controversial as it criticizes all of the communist bullshit that they have going on in China. And apparently, it's a little bit suspect how devoted the people are to Li, as well as Li forcing people to reject modern medicine, which is something we'll get into, which I would say is definitely their worst offense in this cult. So, to his followers, Li has always been seen like a godlike figure. He's told people he can levitate, he can walk through walls and see into the future, okay? He is super conservative and ultra controversial. He has totally rejected modern medicine to the point where there's been reports of supposedly members who have passed away from starvation and rejecting medicine that they needed to keep them alive. With that, he's also denounced homosexuality, feminism, and general worldliness, okay? I would give you some of the quotes of the things that he said, but they're honestly so crazy that I can't say them. It's really bad. He does not like gay people. He really does not really like women at all either. And he believes also, to some extent, not in like a... I won't even go there. I won't go there. We won't go there because that'll be there's a whole other topic that'll have way more of that later, honestly. Okay. But according to Falun Gong, they aspire to enable people to ascend spiritually through moral rectitude and the practice of a set of exercises and meditation. So, like, if you guys want to look into all, like, the exercises and meditation they do, I was gonna read them all off to you guys, but it's not that crazy, and it's just a long fucking steps of process, right? But now, like I mentioned before, a lot of people have very heavily criticized their devotion to Li Hongzhi, okay? So that's the biggest thing that critics have to say. But the biggest issue is that the government in China was not fucking with this cult whatsoever. When they found out how serious things were getting, they actually made the cult illegal. So the cult moved, and now their headquarters is in Deer Park, New York. But this sign that you see in the top right that says "Stopped Forced Live Organ Harvesting," so this is a rumor that Falun Gong has had around them from back when they were in China. Now, there's been big standoffs between them and the Chinese government. There's a lot of them. If you want to look them up, there's like huge protests that will happen. And you will see these Falun Gong members get arrested. And they have definitely had human rights violated. Like, no secret there. But to go as far as to say is they've had members have their organs harvested has always been kind of this little iffy thing. There's definitely been imprisonment, there's been torture of people, but do we know if there's been actual organ harvesting? No, but that's something that Falun Gong claims happens to their members by the Chinese government. Now, where does the Shen Yun play come into play? Oh, well, that's actually how they make a lot of money for the cult. If you've ever seen this poster, you've probably at least like seen the play advertised, and the tickets for this shit are not cheap, but the play is apparently like their interpretive adaptation of Falun Gong and what's happened to them as people. So, if you ever want to check out a Shen Yun play, just know you are directly supporting a cult that is super against homophobia and feminism and medicine. That's all. Oh, I'm gonna have to wet my whistle between every one of these. I know that for sure. Now, we've made it through 3 so far. This next one. Now, you guys may or may not have heard about this one. I'd say this is one of the more obscure ones. We're going to talk about the Final Fantasy VII house. I'm sorry. This one is really fucked up when you get more into it, but like, just off the name, it's really fucking hilarious. So in State College, PA, coincidentally enough, if you guys don't know where State College, PA is, that is Penn State. Basically, State College, PA, the entire town is Penn State. At least, like, most of the town is taken up by the campus, and the rest of the people that live there are just people who are Penn State for lifers. How do I know? I went to Penn State, okay? Penn State in itself is a whole cult we could get into, okay? That's a whole thing for later. Now, apparently, in State College, PA, in the mid-2000s, a bunch of role players all met up at this 2-bedroom apartment and got all freaked up and freaked out. So let's explain what happened. So this woman that you're seeing in these photos here, she was known as Genova. So she was the one who kind of met all these people or brought all of these people together. She believed that she was a supernatural being in her past life, and that so are all these other people, and that she could soul bond with various Final Fantasy VII characters. What is a soul bond, perhaps, do you mean? Well, I'll get the actual definition, because I'm not gonna lie, it's a little wackadoodle crazy. But soul bond is an intense, unbreakable, mystical connection. It says the character acts as an independent voiced presence or headmate in the host's mind. People who experience this are called soul bonders. And I don't know really how I can explain it other than it's almost like if they had DID and they think that the other personality inside of them is fucking Sora from Kingdom Hearts. It's like if I sat here and I told you today, guys, yeah, I'm feeling really connected to Isabelle from Animal Crossing. She speaks to me in my head. She tells me who to date, who to be with, how to move my life. Isabelle is me. In my past life, I was Isabelle. That's how she feels about some Final Fantasy VII characters, okay? So she was only 20 years old when she started this Final Fantasy VII house. Now, her background is a little interesting because she would tell people things like that she was part of a secret government program and that she previously did training camps in the desert, okay? She claimed that she had various powers, like tapping into multiple personalities at will. And then also, oh my god, I'm sorry. This one is taking me out to even try to explain this. Have you ever heard of the other kin community? where people claim to be like animals or like mythological spirits, fictional characters. She also had a thing with that. So soul bonding kind of was a branch of the otherkin community. So she started off being in like otherkin community spaces and then moving it into this soul bonding space, right? And specifically when Final Fantasy VII came out, a lot of people did go a little bit crazy for this game. It started a wave of what you would call Japanophiles. People who were obsessed with Japan, like to the point that they thought they were like actually Japanese. And she kind of, instead of thinking she was Japanese, she thought she was the actual video game character, which was actually crazy. So one of the members said that she even began pressuring members to hook up because their characters in the game that they were supposedly soul bonded with were together. So they must have to be together in real life. She would then go on, so basically the way she brings everybody together is through like a Reddit style of blog where she talks about this other community, this soul bonding. And so she's like, everybody can come visit me. So in different like waves, people come out to visit her. And I think at a period of time, she had like 8 to 12 people all involved in this, something like that. It wasn't that crazy. And the main one was this partner that she had, Rachel. The person who tells the story, Sid, is a big part in this as well. And then there's 2 Sids, which is also really confusing, but all of their names are video game character names, also really confusing. Okay, so basically, Joanna would go on to quit her babysitting job, which is the only job she had, by the way, to keep this like 2-bedroom apartment. And then she would say that every person in this cult would have to supply her with income, which she would then spend on expensive food or magical toys like wands and angel figurines, okay? And every night, the members of the actual cult had to eat $10 steaks and Gatorade. That was their everyday meal, was $10 steaks and Gatorade. And these pictures that you're seeing, by the way, are the living conditions of this apartment. Now, they actually moved, which we'll get into here in a second. It kind of has to do with this next part. So the cult members were always told to report their every move to Joanna or Rachel. Rachel was the partner, right? So everything that they did had to be known, or else they would risk being locked out of the living space for hours of the night. Which, on top of that, being locked out, you could also be sleeping in your bed. You have done everything right. You told Joanna where you were going to be, and she wakes you up. There's not even beds, by the way. Let me be clear. They were sleeping on the floor. You're sleeping on the nasty-ass floor, and they said that this place smelled like farts covered with glitter spray. So you're sleeping on the fart-covered floor, and Joanna makes you up, and she's like, yep, I need you to go run to the gas station for me. And we'll start beating on you if you don't. Or berating you. Like, just, like, making you feel like shit if you don't. So it got to the point that the place became so fucking disgusting that Joanna and Rachel moved in with Sid. They were like, we're just going to up and leave this place, and we're just going to move in with Sid. To an even smaller 1-bedroom apartment in the same complex, though. Like, in the exact same apartment building. And so Sid had to move everything solo in the summer. And it got to the point where Sid was so fed up with this shit that they were homeless on the streets so that they could get out of this situation from their own apartment. Sid would then later go on to tell this story to multiple news networks and let people know online who were part of the Final Fantasy VII community who Joanna was and what a disgusting person she is. But that's pretty much the tale to be had. Joanna has never really been, I guess, heard from or seen since. This is as much as we know about her. She kind of like MIA'd. People have said that she's been around like other soul bonding, other kin communities, but nobody could actually pinpoint if it was 100% her. So that's where we leave the Final Fantasy VII house. Also, if you guys are liking this video so far, definitely let me know in the chat. If we get to 250 likes, we might do a part 2 of this, because I've definitely got a list of some more cults to run through with you guys. And, ooh, wait, I also realized I forgot to pin the link for the Streamlabs. Let me go copy that really quickly. Because I was just about to mention it, and I was like, well, it ain't even going to work if I don't have it copied, huh? Alright, here we go. Let me just full screen myself really quick so I can pin that. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, if you guys did want to throw a dono, the link is now pinned for you guys up at the top. I have great news, by the way, that I forgot to mention. I officially hit 3K watch hours as of this morning. It's gonna take a couple days for it to update on the earn side. Like, it's still showing like 1.7K, which means probably I'd say by like Wednesday or Thursday I can actually apply for it, and then it takes 3 to 5 days from there. So hopefully, fingers crossed, by next week I will have official monetization. But until then, we're still rocking with the Streamlabs link. But I have to say a huge thank you for everybody for supporting the channel so hard that we hit the 3K watch hours, and anybody who's like donated at all so far. You guys have been amazing over here, so thank you. I'm really enjoying doing these streams with y'all. All right, let me wet my whistle before we hit the next one. Lieutenant Aries said, I spent all weekend having VODs playing in the background while playing video games. My goat. Thank you. All right, next one on the list is actually the Twin Flame universe. So this one's had actually a couple different documentaries done about it. It's got one on Netflix. HBO did one. I know NBC's done one. So you guys probably or may not know about this one, but we'll go ahead and get into what it is. So the Twin Flames universe was an American religious organization that was run by Jeff and Shayla Devine. So when these two first met, she was living in Arizona and he moved in with her, and then they moved to Hawaii to start a blog called Awakened Intimacy, and then started making YouTube videos together in 2014. It wasn't until 2017 that Twin Flames Universe got founded, and then they began offering these Ascension courses, which was essentially like a paid online class. Now, these courses were said to cost $4,444. Holy shit. That is crazy. So in 2019... following founding the Twin Flames universe, the couple also founded the Church of Union to unify all religion under one spiritual umbrella. And Jeff within the church is known as Father Christ, and Shayla, I don't even know how you say it, I think it's Shalia, is known as Mother Christ. Their daughter is known as the Princess of all creation. And together they are the Master Christ, eternal ruler of all gods living... eternal ruler of all creation by God's living hand. Excuse me. It's a bit of a mouthful. They also run something called Mind Alignment Process, which is an online service that claims to treat PTSD. They've claimed that they can cure cancer, other medical conditions with different types of spiritual therapy. They're also told that they should engage in mirror exercises, which requires them to tell the person that they're sitting in front of what bothers them, and then be berated for it and told that it's their fault, and then they have to blame themselves for it. Also, thank you, dummy, so much for subscribing. The group teaches that every single individual in the world has a twin flame, and that there's intense degrees of what a soulmate is. And the reason that I think that the intense degrees came up was because originally the group was small, and it's something very important to note that most of the members of this group are women. And why is that going to come up later? Well, you'll see. Because, you know, if all these people are trying to find their soulmate, well, it's going to be a little bit interesting because the group teaches the concept of divine masculine and divine feminine, and that every partner has one masculine and one feminine partner. So if they have a masculine and a feminine partner, but the group is 80% women, how's that gonna go? Well, I guess we're gonna find out. So the group initially allowed outsiders to be assigned twin flames, but then they had issues where members were facing restraining orders or criminal charges for stalking, because the people they were assigning to be their twin flame had no interest in them whatsoever. So then it started having to be, you have to be in the group to be a twin flame, right? Which then you're like, okay, well then definitely the problem of it being 80% women is going to rise. Oh, well, former members have criticized the group for doing a form of conversion therapy by exerting social pressures on members to conform their divine assigned gender identity. So if, let's say, Jeff and Shalia here decide that you're a woman and your twin flame is another woman, but you're not gay, and also there's got to be a divine masculine and divine feminine, one of you's got to transition, and they are going to assign to you who the male in the relationship B is, and you are set to transition. Other members have mentioned being assigned a twin flame who wasn't the gender they were attracted to, and that they had to transition under the guidance of Jeff and Shayla medically as well. Not just...
Surprise, motherfucker.
15 whole doll hairs that you don't have to share with. Sparkles emoji. Daniel, sparkles emoji.
That's enough for lunch. Thank you, Rosebud. Really appreciate you. But yeah, so they would make them medically, not just socially transition, not just like, oh, well, you have to say you're a male. No, physically, medically transition. Okay? Crazy shit. Then Jeff has been accused of not only behaving abusively towards Shalia, but also abusively towards other members. And it is alleged that he demands that followers cut off their families and treat people outside of the community as if they are untrustworthy. And he also makes every member follow a strict daily routine. Crazy shit. Then on July 1st, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel actually announced that authorities had raided two of the properties linked to twin flames, and that there was an ongoing criminal probe against Jeff and Shalia Devine. So that was summer of last year, so there probably will be a case ongoing coming up. Now, there has been a response from Twin Flames Universe in response to all the criticisms that they've gotten from ex-members who have left and these documentaries coming out. They said, the allegations levied against Twin Flames Universe not only distort our true aims, methods, and curriculums, but also misrepresent the autonomy of our community members who are free to engage with our resources as they see fit. We are committed to confronting these allegations in an open and accountable manner. Thank you for the PR ass response. But that's the majority of what you'll get into with the Twin Flames. Most of these pictures here are just Jeff and Shalia and the various documentaries that they've been involved in, because most of what they do has been online. Occasional people have met up with them in real life, but they're more of an online-centered cult. Ooh, my phone almost died. I almost let my phone die. I was like, holy shit. Okay. Next up, we've got Buddhafield. So Buddhafield is actually a religious movement in the United States. It began in the 1980s in Hollywood, and it is still active in Hawaii today. So this is an ongoing cult. So they recruit people mostly through yoga studios. The teacher of Buddhafield is this man who was previously known as Michael Andreas. The teacher, Reggie, but he was born Jaime Gonzalez. Jaime Gonzalez is his name. Or not Gonzalez, Gomez. His name is Jaime Gomez. We're going to call him Jaime for this. So Jaime thinks of himself as God and encourages his followers to think of themselves as God as well. Buddhafield uses Sanskrit, which the Sanskrit word Shakti, which means power, for his alleged power transferences to his followers using his finger. So, like, for him to be able to, like, anoint you as a god or whatever the fuck, he just, like, touches you with his finger like E.T. and he's like, Shakti. And that's how he does it. Buddhafield followers change names while they're in the group, and they also have this like weird ritual where they have to do these 3 to 5 hour ballet sessions. So strict about this, by the way, that they will even miss work to make these ballet sessions, which is what you're seeing in the like middle photo on the bottom there. After Waco, Gomez was not fucking with the fact, though, that they were categorized as a cult by, like, the general population. So he actually left his followers for 6 months to find a whole new location for them, because at this point they were in Hollywood. And he began to undergo crazy amounts of plastic surgery, and then also encouraged his female followers to do the same. He also actually kept one follower from seeing her father before he died, encouraged others to have abortions, claiming religious reasons. Many allegations have actually been made against Jaime. Most notably, it was sexual abuse, but he's also said to have people, like, so he would do these hypnotherapy sessions with you, but then he would take the things that you would confess to him in these hypnotherapy sessions and use them against you later. And then he also had some weird thing about his male followers. He had specifically, like I said, the abuse of the male followers, but the way that he would push people to stay in the cult was saying that the AIDS crisis was so bad that the gay men couldn't leave. So then he would use that to push his sexual abuse on top of them. Not on top of them, but onto them. You know what I'm saying? Really weird. And then former members claimed that they had been brainwashed. They also claimed that they were not allowed to obtain information from outside sources, and that one member even got in trouble for purchasing a TV before. The interesting thing about Buddhafield is, even though there has been a documentary on it called Holy Hell, the interesting thing about Holy Hell compared to a lot of the other cult documentaries I watch, and why I really recommend that you guys go check that one out for yourself, Holy Hell was like an infiltration of the cult by somebody. So it's got like more footage of what actually happened there than just people's retellings. So, but in response to this documentary, Jaime has come out and said, Holy Hell is not a documentary. Rather, it is a work of fiction designed to create drama, fear, and persecution. That is what sells. I am saddened by this attempt to obscure the message of universal love and spiritual awakening. It is devastating to see these friends who were once filled with love for the world become so angry. I wish them only the best and hold each one close to my heart. If any of my actions were a catalyst for their disharmony, I am truly sorry. May all beings find peace.
Motherfucker.
W work.
Thank you, Hey Hooted, for the $25. Yo, I worked so hard on this, guys, by the way, so, like, thank you. That makes me feel really good. I spent, like, my whole weekend doing this, y'all. All right. So, that was his statement, and I guess that's where he leaves things. But if you guys want to learn a little more about Buddhafield, definitely check out the Holy Hell documentary. It's so good, guys. Okay. This next one up is really interesting. So similarly to Shen Yun, in the way you might have seen something from this cult before, any of you guys ever heard of a restaurant called the Yellow Deli? I'm curious. They actually have a Yellow Deli on, Yale campus, coincidentally enough. So the Yellow Deli was started. Barely Functional said, yes, I've been there. You supported a cult. You supported a cult. My bad. But it's so good. You're really drinking the Kool-Aid. Really drinking the real Kool-Aid. Suspicious. She said, I know. Oh. She's down with the cult. Shit, let's get into it. So the 12 Tribes is formerly known as the Vine Christian Community Church, the Northeast Kingdom Community Church, the Messianic Communities, and the Community Apostolic Order. They have changed their name quite a bit.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Ooh.
Do you like green Kool-Aid? Please add Kung Fu Hustle to the new movie wheel.
I got you, V Midnight. The movies are 5 though, so do you want to add it twice or do you want to add something else as well? And then, do I like green Kool-Aid? No, I don't think so, because I think green Kool-Aid is the one that's like strawberry kiwi, and I don't like strawberry kiwi. Like, at all. Alright, I'm adding Kung Fu Hustle though. Kung Fu Hustle. Alright, but let's go ahead and jump in. So, this was founded by Gene Spriggs, excuse me, and it sprang out of the Jesus movement that started in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1972. So their beliefs are very similar to a mix of Christian fundamentalism, Hebrew roots, Messianic Judaism, and the sacred name movement. But the group says that all other Christian denominations are fallen and refuses to believe or align itself with that. It believes that for the Messiah to return, the church needs to be restored to its original form described in these books that they have, but I tried to read it and I have no clue what they're trying to say. They are really confusing. Also, Ariana C., thank you so much for subscribing. So, its interpretation of this apparently is they want to restore Israel, and they have led the group to believe that the end times have already arrived. Okay, so the group believes that there are 3 eternal destinies, and after the fall of man, every person was given a conscience, and that after dying, every person goes to a state of being called death regardless of their faith. Is that a lot? Yep. Keep with me because it's gonna fucking get real more confusing. Upon the future second coming, believers will be brought back for 1,000 years to reign with Yahshua, they don't believe in Jesus, they believe in Yahshua, who comes from the Messianic. Yep, it's a lot. Yep, we'll keep going. And then when they reign with Yahshua, he will give the last judgment eventually. Then at the end of this millennium, all of the non-believers will be judged according to their deeds and put into one of the 2 groups, the righteous and the filthy and unjust. The filthy and unjust will be sent to the lake of fire, while the righteous will go on into eternity and fill the universe. So basically, this cult, let me sum that up. Their idea is like this. You live your life and you're gonna die. And you're gonna die regardless of what you believe in, right? But then we're all going to be reincarnated if you believe in Yahshua. But only those who believe in Yahshua. And you will live for 1,000 years. And after those 1,000 years, he's going to decide if you can continue to live or if you're going to burn in a lake forever. That's their belief system. So, similarly to Amish dress, as you can see in some of the photos. Now, this was something I did want to note. So the bottom right is more older photos of what they looked like. The top right and the middle photo are actually photos that they have posted on their current website right now. This is still an active cult. This cult has never stopped running. So this is like the top kind of gives you a better idea of what they look like currently, but they were a little bit more old school. They still are pretty old school. They're definitely more traditional with the women than they are with the men. Oh, also, V Midnight said lemon lime. I fuck with some lemon lime. You're cooking. Okay, so it says that men are supposed to wear long shirts paired with vests, and women are supposed to wear long pinafores, skirts, or pantaloons with loose-fitting blouses, keep their hair long, and covered their heads during church services with headscarves. Their diet is centered around whole grain bread, which they regarded as nourishment for the body and soul. Okay, they are some whole grain bread lovers. Also, the leadership of the group is structured by different series of councils, which consist of local councils, regional councils, and global councils. The group is overseen within these councils by a number of teachers, deacons, deaconesses, elders, and apostles. Gene Spriggs, though, is highly regarded as the first person to open up his home to members, but members state that he is not the spiritual figurehead. He is the guy who started this movement, but they do not worship him, okay? They worship Yahshua. The courtship, by the way, which is how they get to date each other in the community, is really odd. It structures with a waiting period in which the man or the woman expresses their desire to get to know each other. And then the potential couple receives input from the entire community when they're spending time together. If they get approval from the community, the couple is betrothed or engaged if the parents agree and the whole community. Their love is confirmed as well as their compatibility, and then the couple is permitted to finally hold hands. The bottom right, you're seeing with this weird, it looks like that one episode of SpongeBob where they're like, Mr. Krabs. They're like, are you feeling it, Mr. Krabs? Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? Like, it feels like that's what they're doing in the bottom right. That's a marriage ritual. That is what their marriage rituals look like. Weddings are apparently pre-enactments of what the group will believe will happen when Joshua returns to Earth for his bride. So that's that. According to the group, this is where things get really sketchy, and why you probably were wondering, like, why are they so far down compared to some of these other ones right now? Because, like, you know, like, it's not even been that bad. Oh. The group believes that slavery was a marvelous opportunity and that black people could be brought over here to be slaves so that they could be found worthy of the nations. So when you eat at the Yellow Deli, when you're eating at the Yellow Deli, just saying, they're fucked up. They are real fucked up. And then, I can't even continue what some of the things they say are because it's so crazy. But the weird part about it, you see in this one photo how they've clearly displayed the one black woman front and center. Yeah, because it says, nevertheless, there are black members in the tribe, but it teaches the belief that slavery is only over for those who believe. So because she's joined the cult, it's fine. I don't fucking believe him. Then it says that the group practices corporal punishment of children with a reed-like rod similar to a balloon stick across the child's bottom. And then it says punishments can also include, for the children, severe beatings to the point of bleeding or collapse and are often repeated daily. Don't eat at the Yellow Deli. Don't eat there. Sorry, I don't know how good their food is, but it can't be that good. It cannot be that good. See, I was going to put this one, when I was researching it, I thought it was like just, cult with a sandwich shop. That's not that crazy. No, they're fucked in the head, bro. They're super fucked in the head. Barely Functional said, I was like, that's not so bad. Then bam. Yep, that was me. That was me when I was researching this. Also, thank you, Echo and Brooklyn and C. Halliday Season 23 for subscribing. Now, the only thing that they've happened in response to police, on June 22nd in 1984, Vermont State Police arrived at the 12 Tribes Island Pond residences and took hundreds of group members with their children based on an investigation of child abuse, although all cases were dismissed when a judge found that the search warrant was unconstitutional. So, that being said, 12 Tribes is still currently active. Yellow Delis are still current and active. And you can even find their website, where I got these top 2 pictures from, is their current postings of what they've been up to in recent times. Crazy shit. Crazy shit. Barely Functional said, my friend definitely didn't know all that. Most people don't. That's the thing. Yale even allowed in a yellow deli on the campus, and since then has had like people protesting to like remove it or whatever, but what can you do? People love their sandwiches. Next up, this one is actually from a super recent documentary, and I'd say this is probably our most recent cult in this one that is no longer active. The Cult of Nature Boy. So this one was actually called Carbonation, but the actual documentary is called The Cult of Nature Boy, so a lot of people refer to it as that now. So Carbonation was a online Black Utopia movement led by Eligio Bishop, who went by the alias Nature God or Three God. Mostly went by, or not Nature God, Nature Boy or Three God. He mostly goes by Nature Boy. So through live streams and social media, primarily through TikTok, he delivered like this message that resonated with a lot of like the young Black people in America at that time, because, you know, that's when a lot of things like had heated up with like racial tensions and whatnot. So his framing of everything was simple: detach yourself from American systems, return to nature, and you can reclaim freedom. So if you watch the documentary, what you hear from a lot of the people who used to be in this is they were like, oh yeah, especially like during the time that this was going on, because it was like close to like 2020, there was not much going on. Like there was not much anyone could do, and the world's been fucking hella sketched the past few years. We all know. So they were ready to go. He positioned himself in a way that he was both a teacher and a deity, collapsing like spiritual authority into like a way of like personal control. So he would tell followers that he was like healing them, but then he would use his control to make them do his literal bidding. Like you would see videos of like the men like being down at his feet, like worshiping, like licking his feet basically. And then you would see other videos of like the men being like, he would say something like, would you swallow my cum? And the men will say yes. Like, it's like that crazy. That's how obsessed with him they were. Bishop declared all women in the community to be his wives and demanded total sexual obedience. So when things started, it was like pretty normal. And a lot of the people, the reason they stayed for so long is because there was like a year of living with him when nothing was like this. And then after they moved from their initial place that they were living, I want to say it was in Costa Rica, he had like a switch flip in him, and that's when he started doing like the wives thing, the obedience thing. It didn't start off like he was a deity. That's something that came through time of him being there and like feeling more comfortable with having this control. Former members and prosecuted have detailed a extremely brutal system of punishments and disobedience, ranging from forced physical labor to violent physical beatings, shunning, and psychological abuse. In March 2024, though, Eligio Bishop was convicted of rape, false imprisonment, and related charges, and sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus an additional 10 years, which is absolutely wild. Really quickly, I'm going to throw my AC on, though, because I just realized it's at 75 degrees for some reason. I am sweating. Give me one sec. All right, I'm back. Menopause Barbie said, I prefer the bread cult. Well, in good news, that's pretty much it as far as Nature Boy. If you guys want to go watch a full documentary, you can of this. But I'm not going to lie. As far as the things he did with the cult, a lot of it was just humiliating them on social media and, like, getting them in a position where they couldn't financially support themselves, you know? Now, next up, this is an interesting one. This is one I was not even sure if I was going to include because of how weird and how separated it is from a lot of the other ones we've covered. So, this is called the Suki Project. The Suki Project was a website based on the belief that our reality is one system among many universes, and that when we die, we ascend to the next system using the power of Suki tokens. In January 2007, a user on 4chan by the name of Suki gained attention after they tried to launch the Suki Project. It alleged that by joining the website, users would be given these coins and that each user would be assigned a role to contribute towards helping build a world that was completely tokenized. The site specifically warns users, though, not to commit and that users are expected to ready themselves by using the information on the site rather than ing themselves. The Suki site explained that we live in the system space and that this is only one system in it. Information on the site was vague and cryptic. There were links that led to like literally nothing, or static images of like black and white pixels that people thought could be like these like crazy codes. It was so like weird for the time. And many users have mentioned and made reference to Lane, which upon research is Lane anime. Like if you look that up, there's an anime called Serial Experiments Lane. And the anime was about a girl named Lane who discovers a virtual world called The Wired, which is similar to the internet. People can upload their minds to The Wired, and it turns out the anime girl on the front page of the site is Lane. And all of the talk of system space is based on the show's lore. So, Suki opened a website encouraging those interested in the subject to register their souls to be transferred to the cyberpunk dimension, LFE, after they lose their lives in the real world. If someone had registered before July 1st, 2017, the registration deadline, and died due to old age or any other reason, they would still transcend to the new system. Many believed that this was Suki's whole purpose of this, which urging followers to take their own lives, thus transcend to a new plane of existence as soon as possible. And unfortunately, this would come true. After the deadline, Canadian authorities found the lifeless body of the person you are seeing here, 17-year-old Jake Fair, in a wooded area. He had been missing for over a month, had deleted the records from his computer, and only left some handwritten notes with the letters LFE, a clear allusion to the cult. So, since this happened, there was another website that was made, like, following the Suki project, which, like, later had something to do with the Serial Experiments Lane shit, like, more to do with that. They've both been taken down since. The true identity of who Suki is has never been known, but clearly the intentions were to try to push a mass among people through this virtual method. So it's unfortunate that he actually did even get one person to do this. It is so sad. And who knows, like, hopefully didn't get more. This next one we're going to be looking into is A Love Has Won. This one is a really, really interesting story. If you've never seen the documentary, buckle in. It's about to get wild. Let me get my whistle wetted. Loki Bear said Suki is that girl from True Blood with the gap teeth. I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know. But also, guys, remember to smack a like on this video if you want to see a part 2 to this. I still had 16 more cults that I didn't have time to hit the research on, so I literally have enough to do a full part 2 to this. So if that's something that you guys would be interested in, I'd be super down to do it with you. But 250 likes is my price. Otherwise, if you guys wanted to send any dono or any support today, I do got the link pinned. But you guys just watching is hell of support enough, so thank you. But let's go ahead and start up on the Love Has Won cult. So this cult was founded around 2014 by Amy Carlson, who pronounced herself Mother God. And the group has blended like new age type of like hippie theology kind of stuff, conspiracy theories, and alien worship. So the group had between 12 to 20 full-time members who lived with her at the time of her death, which that is the craziest part of the story we will get into. So we have to start with how she even got here. So in 2007, she left her third husband, her children, and her job, ceased contact with everyone in her family and met up with a guy that she met named Amerith White Eagle. White Eagle then left Carlson for another light worker he had recruited from New York around 2014. But before that, when she first met Amerith White Eagle, she was doing like these like social media, like proclaiming like hippie movement shit. You know what I'm talking about? You ever seen like those weird hippie TikToks where they're like, I can feel the grass in the breeze and the shake of the earth through my palm, like that kind of shit. Then, then the group had proclaimed, like, then when she started this group, which was in 2014 when he left her, the group had proclaimed that she was divine, a 19 billion year old being who had birthed all of creation. She claimed that she had been reincarnated 534 times using the power of her previous identities, Jesus, Cleopatra, Joan of Arc, and Marilyn Monroe. You know, she was what you would call a multifaceted girl. Then she had the group do these daily live streams on YouTube to recruit more members, solicit donations, and promote new age goods, alternate medicine products, and vitamin supplements. The group offered etheric surgery, which cost about $88 per session, claiming that they could remove sickness and negative energy from the body, which is also something we'll get to a little bit later. So if you see like the top photo in the middle there, that's actually 2 of the members who did live streams for her. She would have every person in the house like going on like different live streams at different points of the day. Ex-members have accused the group of physical abuse and sleep deprivation. Members were only allowed to sleep 4 to 5 hours a night. In May of 2020, a member of the group was actually found wandering the wilderness, disoriented, naked, and dehydrated. The group described her as lacking the right energy, and she was just on the wrong side of the mountain. So it was her fault. She shouldn't have been in the wilderness walking on the wrong side of the mountain. It's all on you. Despite the group having banned drinking and drugs for members, Carlson would be known to drink like extreme amounts of alcohol all the time, which made her behave very abusively. Like she was a very mean drunk. Then we're going to go ahead and skip in time a little bit. So remember when I mentioned that the group was selling their new age medicinal practices? Well, part of what they were selling was something called colloidal silver. And let me look up exactly what it is, because I actually don't know off the rip. But I know it's like a liquid. Colloidal silver consists of tiny silver particles suspended in a liquid. Although promoted as an alternative medicine and dietary supplement, major health organizations, including the FDA, warn that it is neither safe nor effective for treating any diseases as known physiological function in the human body. So this is some new age hippie bullshit. That's really all it is. It's literally silver and drinking metal. That's what these bitches got them, drinking metal. So they were selling this shit. She had been feeling sick from all of her alcohol problems, so she decided that she was going to only use her etheric healing, the etheric surgery, you know, just chakra out the body to heal herself, and colloidal silver. Well, you see the bottom right photo where her face is fucking blue? Yeah, that's just the color that colloidal silver turned her goddamn skin. This bitch drank so much fucking silver, she turned into the Blue Man Group. Okay? And then because, you know, your body can't process all of that metal, she, of course, passed away. Now, let's get into it. So on April 28th, 2021, the mummified corpse of Carlson was discovered in the mission house they had near Crestone. The state of decay suggested that she had been dead for several weeks. She was 45 at the time of her death. The body was found in a sleeping bag, wrapped in Christmas lights, covered in glitter, in what authorities say was a makeshift shrine. 7 members of the group were charged with abuse of a corpse as well as child abuse due to the presence of 2 children on the property. If you watch the documentary, they show you what her body looked like. They do. And I didn't put it in this slideshow because it genuinely is very jarring. But let me just say, one of the sickest things I've ever seen in a fucking documentary. And the way that, because you see the 2 women on the top doing that live stream, they are still active promoting this cult. The cult branches off and does its own thing, and they separate into 2 separate groups. Those 2 women are still active in it, and they were there when she was mummified or whatever, and they're like, yeah, you know, we just thought she was gonna come back. Like, she always told us if she died, she was gonna come back. So, like, we were just waiting on her to come back. Bitches ain't the zombie zoo nanny. Like, what's happening? Anywho. So, a photo from a few weeks before she was thought to have died shows her appearance to have been emaciated with thinning hair, discolored skin with a purplish hue. This is one of the photos I could find. There is worse ones, but I felt like this one was enough to give you the idea of the blue skin. Carlson had clearly been ingesting large amounts of colloidal silver, which the group had been promoting as a COVID-19 cure even after receiving the warning from the FDA. Consuming colloidal silver over a long time can lead to the blue-gray discoloration of the skin, as well as seizures and organ failure. Ding, 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 ding. Guess what she died from? Organ failure. Authorities stated that Carlson had actually not even died on the property, but died in California, and that her body was transported back to Colorado after Carlson's death was publicized. The Facebook group said that she had ascended, and then Love Has Won was taken offline. So then following that, the group actually split into 2 several groups, 5D Disclosure Group and Joy Reigns. Out of the 2, I'm pretty sure the Joy Reigns is the less crazy one, but I actually don't know. They all mummified this woman. They all mummified. Like, and we got the next one. Let's go. We've got the Source family. This one, okay, so things, I would say we've definitely hit like a reach from like where things were like funny, hee hee ha ha, to where things are like no longer going to be funny, hee hee ha ha, guys. These are where the things start to get crazier. So this is the Source family. The Source family was actually a star-studded 1970s Los Angeles utopian commune and a new age cult. It was centered around rock music, charismatic leadership, and it grew out of this famous vegetarian restaurant, similar to the other one that had the yellow deli. And the community had disintegrated after the death of its leader in 1975. So the Source family was heavily influenced by the teachings of somebody named Yogi Bhajan, who actually, this Yogi guy would have multiple people who would go and make like versions of cults like based off of him, which is actually so sad to hear. And they believed in the astrological age of Aquarius. So the family had practiced communal living in Southern California, but later moved to Hawaii. They also would start a psychedelic rock band by the name of Yahowah 13. Yogi Bhajan in the late night, or Baker, which is the name of, excuse me, I haven't even said the guy who like officially runs this one yet, but Father Yod is the name of the guy who's going to run the Source family later. So Father Yod's real name is Baker. So if you hear me say Baker, I'm talking about Father Yod. But anyway, so Father Yod left Yogi in the late 1960s to create his own philosophy based on the Western mystery tradition. He changed his name to Father Yod Yahowah and became the patriarch of a commune of young people. So before forming the cult, he had a history of violent crime, including bank robberies, and he killed a man with a single punch. He killed a man with a single punch. Now, the one thing about the Source family that's known to be very interesting is that a lot of their doctrines were supposedly kept secret, but they generally adopted a way of life that promoted natural health, organic vegetarian diets, and communal living. Father Yod had a communal group of 150 people living in Las Feliz. He had 14 wives and 3 children. He instituted a system where he abandoned his original wife, eventually taking on 13 wives or concubines in the commune. And there were multiple allegations that part of these relationships that he would take in were underage. Not just for himself, but just people in the commune. Daily life included waking up at 4 a.m. for morning meditations, cold plunges, and eating raw, natural diet. The group was devoted to spirituality, free love, and eventually forming that psychedelic rock band, the Yo-Ha-Wah 13, which was named after himself. In 1975, this cult came to the funniest end I've ever heard of any cult. So when they eventually did move to Hawaii because of the stuff that was happening, like in LA, because, underage wives, accusations, like weird shit. Like I said, a lot of their actual practices have been kept very secret, but people who have left the community have spoken out largely against them. And the only thing that ever made this group so popular was this restaurant, because a lot of people really like to eat there because there wasn't a lot of vegetarian shit at the time. But in 1975, when he went to Hawaii, he brought a bunch of the cult with him. He decided he's gonna go hang gliding. No previous experience. He's never been hang gliding in his life. Motherfucker jumped off of a cliff and crash landed and died fucking hours later at 53 years old. And so the cult disbanded. They didn't know what to do without him. It was like he died so tragically and so crazily. They were just like, well, how'd we even trust that guy? He's out here just jumping off of cliffs. So, yeah, that's the end of that one. I say the reason that he's so far down in this one is the underage wives. The underage wives thing, ain't it? And it's so secretive even to this day. People who have left are still so scared to talk about what happened in the Source family, even though he's long dead. That's the crazy part. Oh, did we skip one? Oh, no, we did. Next up on this list is one I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. This is the cult of Scientology. But a lot of you guys might not know what Scientology is or how it even started, so we'll give a little background for you guys here today. So Scientology originally emerged in the early 1950s, and it started from this guy named Ron L. Hubbard. So he believed in something called Dianetics, which he promoted as a form of therapy. So the initial Dianetics organization collapsed, and he reframed his ideas as a religion, and then started promoting it as Scientology, and then began the Scientology organizations within the United States. He also has some abroad. So basically what Scientology teaches is that each person is an immortal spiritual being called a Thetan, I don't know how you pronounce it, Thetan, I'm assuming. The true self exists independently from the body, but has a body, according to Hubbard. Thetans have lived through many lives and continue existing after bodily death, after which they take on another newly born body. Negative experiences from earlier lifetimes are said to affect a person's present condition, and Scientology techniques are presented as methods for addressing those past traumas. So, in a lot of these cults, we see things where they use ways to address trauma in your life, yada, yada, yada. Well, they're a little interesting with it because it's their past traumas. So they believe the traumas are not from your life, but from your past life. So they use these devices that you see in the bottom right over here to conduct, I don't even know what you would call it, the Dianetics. So these things are called e-meters, and they use that to read levels of something while they're fucking pressing you. I have no clue. Trasimil said, is Scientology the same ones who believe in lizard people? Not that I actually found correct. I don't know. We'll kind of get into it. Actually, probably. Yeah, they believe in really weird shit. So they believe that the physical universe called the MEST an acronym for matter, energy, space, and time, was created by the Thetans, who later became trapped within it and lost awareness of their spiritual nature. A central aim of Scientology practice is the recovery of the Thetans' innate abilities, including exteriorization, the state in which the Thetan separates from the physical body and operates independently of it. So I guess when they're talking about like lizard people, maybe that's what they're talking about. So apparently I'm in this body, right? But this body got nothing to do with me. I am a Thetan controlling myself almost like a little fucking puppet master. David Miscavige, we're going to get into him in a second. L. Ron Hubbard is the guy who started Scientology. Miscavige is currently the leader, but we'll get it. Miscavige is the one in the picture right above the Call Me billboard. Okay. So, Scientology does actually not define or worship a supreme being, but it focuses on the spiritual potential of an individual Thetan rather than the nature of a deity. So, your individual power is more than that of a deity because they don't believe in deities. Scientology maintains a strong doctrinal hostility towards psychiatry and psychology. It has been said like hell of times that Hubbard is super against anything to do with like mental health help, like he will not fuck with that. And that psychologists, he also said that psychiatrists were responsible for severe harms in both ancient and modern history, and Scientology regards psychiatry as corrupt and destructive a profession. Now, this is where we're going to get into more of what these e-meters are used for. So it is called auditing services, which can cost tens or thousands of dollars. And so let me actually, because I have like a link that literally tells me exactly what the auditing is. So auditing is called processing, a central practice in Scientology, which a trained auditor asks structured questions intended to help a participant identify and address past experiences and emotional difficulties. They use the e-meter and describes it as a spiritual tool for detecting areas of mental or spiritual trauma, though courts and scientists have found it to have no medical or scientific validity. Auditing is presented as the primary method for advancing up Scientology's Bridge to Total Freedom, a graded series of levels involving procedures and rundowns, using concepts such as reactive mind, engrams, and past life incidents and implants. Scholars and critics have variously described auditing as a form of psychological conditioning, hypnosis, or pseudo-therapy, and have raised concerns about its methods, the misuse of confidential session records, and its space opera cosmology. There have been legal, regulatory, ethical controversies related to its unproven medical claims, and even the death of some participants. Now, something else I gotta mention is that space opera thing. Now that's a whole nother rabbit hole. You're gonna hear me mention things like space opera and random shit when I'm talking about Scientology. It goes so deep that it's like you can only research so much before it just turns into a whole deep dive on Scientology, honestly. So I try to keep it to like the most important stuff, but space opera comes up a bunch. It's something basically that L. Ron Hubbard says that like space movies or like space movies are like the closest thing to real life. I don't know, really confusing. He's really weird, don't mind him. Anyways, so members have been pressured to also cut ties with their family members in a practice known as disconnection. So I'll explain what disconnection goes into as well. Disconnection is the severance of all ties between a social Scientologist and a friend, colleague, or family member deemed to be antagonistic towards Scientology. Among Scientologists, disconnection is viewed as an important method of removing obstacles to one's spiritual growth. In some circumstances, disconnection has ended marriages and separated children from parents. The Church of Scientology has repeatedly denied that the policy exists, though as of February 2012, its website acknowledged the practice and described it as a human right. The church has tried to argue in court that disconnection is constitutionally protected religious practice. However, this argument was rejected because the pressure to put on individual Scientologists to disconnect means it is not voluntary. So basically the real issue with this whole disconnection thing, it's like, oh, well, if someone's voluntarily choosing to not involve themselves with somebody anymore, then what's the problem? Well, it's almost like you're brainwashing you and telling you that this is the only thing that you should believe, and then they're isolating you by putting you in these places like the Scientology buildings that are known to like just house people in poor conditions. So just saying. Speaking of which, staff have been known to work extremely long hours for minimal pay and coercively pressured to remain on staff after expressing that they wish to leave. Staff who leave are presented with a freeloader bill, retroactively charging for services they received as a part of their employment and easily running into tens of thousands of dollars. Now, there's another thing about Scientology that's even weirder than the actual cult itself. It's the Sea Org. So the Sea Org is the elite inner group who sign billion-year commitments, work full-time for the church, and supervise management of the international network of hundreds of corporations. Now, in this picture, you will see next to David Miscavige is actually a woman by the name, I believe, is it Shelly or Shelby? Hold up. Let me look it up. Shelby or Shelly? It's Shelly Miscavige. Okay, so Shelly Miscavige, she has been missing since how long? That's a good question. She's been missing for years at this point. She has not been seen in the public since 2007. While former members suspect she's held at a secluded Scientology base in California, the church and the Los Angeles Police Department still maintain that she is missing. The church claims that they've seen her and she's all good, she's all fine, but since 2007, almost 10 years, no one's seen her? Yeah. And then on top of that, this Sea Org, they apparently routinely experience overwork, poor food, housing, and healthcare. And so she was a big part of the Sea Org, and a lot of people say that that's kind of what happened to her, is she became somebody who, as marrying David Miscavige, got very into it, and then when she wanted to leave, he took her out. That's what people think. That's all alleged. Numerous Sea Org staff have reported that Scientology leader David Miscavige has mentally abused staff members and physically assaulted them. Allegations on current leader Miscavige include, but are not limited to, claims of human trafficking, child abuse, slavery, forced separation of family members, coercive fundraising practices, harassment of journalists, Scientology critics, and emotional and physical abuse of subordinates by Miscavige. All alleged. He has been taken to court on some of these things, but a lot of it is still either impending or has been like thrown out or like settled on, you know? All right. I am going to do the most impromptu thing really quickly, guys. I drank almost this whole thing. I've really got to run and use the bathroom. So I'm going to throw on a little jam for y'all while I go hit it real quick. And I will be like absolutely right back. There you go. Little non-copyrighted music. Thank you for everybody who waited with me. I appreciate y'all. Sorry, I got a large Dutch Bros today, and it'd be running right through me. Rosebud said, the Final Fantasy VII house got her wild, and that's so funny. Cult where we just smoke a J and nap. Honestly, so real. I'm in it. I'd be in it. All right. Well, that wrapped up Scientology. So a cult that I personally think is ridiculously similar to Scientology, but I never see people make the comparison that much, but they are like, I'd say on the same level of like popularity in the sense that like this is more of like a household cult name. Like most people have heard of this one. So this is NXIVM. So NXIVM was actually led by Keith Raniere, who is now a convicted racketeer and a sex offender. It was also the name of the now defunct company that he founded in 1998, which provided seminars about human potential and served as the front organization for the criminal activity that he did with his close associates. So, him and Nancy Salzman, I think she's actually in one of these photos here, founded NXIVM, which was a personal development company offering executive success programs, which they called ESP, and a range of techniques for self-improvement. During these seminars, students would call Raniere and Salzman Vanguard and Prefect, respectively. Very weird. By 2003, 3,700 people had taken part in these ESP classes. A psychiatric assessment of NXIVM's secret manual called the regimen expensive brainwashing. Starting with reports in June 2017, a 2017 article basically detailed about the DOS, which is, you know how we were just talking about the Sea Org within the Scientology? Well, the DOS is a secret society of women that started in 2015, which female members were allegedly called slaves and got branded with the initials of Raniere and Mack. Now, for those of you guys who are like, who is Mack? Allison Mack, like the actual celebrity, got so wrapped up in this shit with him, and she's one of the people dealing with some of the biggest charges in this along with him. Or I think that, or dealt with, I think she's good now. I think he's the only one who actually ended up getting arrested from things. But apparently they subjected corporal punishment they subjected these people to corporal punishment and required them to provide new photos or potentially damaging information about themselves as collateral damage. Thank you, Jacob Gaiona. Or Jacob G. Aona. Gaiona. I don't know how to say that. For following on Twitch. But law enforcement representatives have alleged that the DOS members were forced into Avery. If you can catch my drift. Excuse me. The oldest program of NXIVM is the Executive Success Programs, which was the ESP that we were talking about. And those had something called the 12-point mission statement, pledging to purge themselves of all parasite and envy-based habits, to enroll others, and to ethically control as much of the money, wealth, and resources of the world as possible within his success plan. Like, that's so fucking nuts. Also, it said breaking a promise and breaching the contract and compromising inner honesty and integrity. Like, they would look to label students with those, like, little tags. It's so strange. And then NXIVM conducted intensives, which were also classes that were 12 hours a day for 16 days. $7,500 for these classes. In one module, it was relationship sourcing, where students were instructed to explore the benefits that they would receive in the event of a partner's sudden death. In another module, Dracula and his ghouls reportedly discussed psychopaths and their followers. Other module titles include Best People, Perfect World, and The Heroic Struggle. Some of the rituals that they would go through prescribed the students to perform a number of gestures like a handshake, bowing, or hand clap. Greetings also included an ESP or Nexium handshake. In the Vow series, they actually talk about how these were intentionally strange, saying that we put rules and rituals up front to be the guardian at the gate. We want some people to say, I don't want anything to do with this. Crazy. Then there was also sashes or scarves that were implemented as a ranking system, almost like colored belts in martial arts. They came in all different colors and patterns to symbolize like how far you were in the ESP mission. And then they also had pictures of founders that were displayed to show respect and give tribute, and that classes ended with expressing gratitude to Keith and Nancy. They also described it as therapy by number and exploration of meaning, involving a senior member questioning participants while they delved into their childhood memories. And similar to like what they did in the Scientology sessions, those things would end up being used against them later. Another study that was conducted within the Nexium community described watching disturbing footage, including people being murdered while their brain waves, physiological activity, and facial and auditory responses were recorded through electroencephalography, galvanic skin response, and video recording. Sarah Edmondson, a Canadian actress who had done ESP since 2005, said that she left Nexium after Allison Mack conducted her into DOS at her Albany home. Edmondson alleged that the DOS participants were blindfolded naked, held down by Allison Mack and 3 other women, and branded on the lower abdomen by a cauterizing pen. You can see the branding in the bottom left, by the way. Those are what the brandings look like, and there's multiple women who have them. In March 2018, Rainier was arrested and indicted on charges related to...
Surprise, motherfucker!
You've done so much work on this, it's actually insane. Absolutely loving it. Lil Smoky heart hands to you, heart hands emoji.
Thank you so much! I really do appreciate it. I told you guys it was going to be a long episode today. I think we probably will end up going for another hour with how much I have left, so... buckle up and stay tuned if you're ready. But thank you so much, Pollyanna. I really appreciate it. Love all you little smokies. But yeah, so in March 2018, he was arrested on charges related to DOS, X trafficking, conspiracy to commit forced labor, conspiracy to commit X trafficking, and at least one woman was coerced to have sex with Rainier, so he was charged for that as well. And the branding ritual, he was also charged for. So, slew of things. Rainier is in jail, and I'm sure he'll be in there for a long time. But I'm curious, do you guys see some of the similarities from Scientology and Nexium? Which I think is important to bring up, because Nexium is something that was taken down. It's totally like been determined by the government to be a cult. Scientology, though, is still considered a religion and is still considered a religious practice. And I feel like if they really looked at it under the guise of how they looked at Nexium, it would be shut down. Now, this next one, forewarnings, fucked up. We're going to get into the FLDS, which is also known as the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. So some of you guys might know what the Latter-day Saints are. They're normally just the LDS. But the FLDS is a separate group, and we're going to get into why they separated. So, in 1904, the LDS Church issued the Second Manifesto, which basically said they were done doing polygamy and that they would eventually start excommunicating Mormons who continued to enter new plural marriages. So after being excommunicated from the LDS Church, some of the locally prominent men in a town of Short Creek, including a man by the name of Lauren Woolley two men by the name of Lauren Woolley and John Barlow, created an organization known as the Council of Friends. And then in 1935, the LDS Church excommunicated Mormon residents of Short Creek who refused to sign the oath of polygamy. So Short Creek kind of became like a safe haven for people who still wanted to practice polygamy within the LDS religion. And then, oh my gosh, excuse me. On the morning of July 26, 1953, 102 Arizona police state officers and National Guard soldiers raided the fundamentalist Mormon community of Short Creek, Arizona. They arrested the entire populace, including 236 children. Of those 236 children, 150 of them were not allowed to return to their parents for more than 2 years. Other parents never regained custody of their children after the raid, and polygamists continued to live there, and later the town was renamed to Colorado City. If you never knew Colorado City's history, there you go. Now, on September 25th, 2007. Now, well, let me give a little bit of context before we skip ahead there. So, in Colorado City, like it said, the polygamists continued to thrive and rise there. But there was this guy, Warren Jeffs. His father was actually, his name starts with an R. It's like Ron Jeffs or something like that. His father was actually convicted for the same thing that Warren will be convicted for. But he was said to be the prophet that was leading the group that was left in Colorado City and was leading the FLDS specifically, the fundamentalist group. So Latter-day Saints, LDS, and FLDS, two separate groups. They broke off because one wants polygamy and one does not. So then on 2007, Jeffs was found guilty of 2 counts of being an accomplice to grape and was sentenced to 10 years to life in prison. And this conviction was later overturned, but he was subsequently sentenced to life in prison plus 20 years and fined $10,000 after being convicted of charges of sexual assault from 2007 to 2011, the leaders of the FLDS church was unclear following Warren Jeffs' conviction. And attorneys released a statement saying that Mr. Jeffs has resigned as the president of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. But then, 2011, Jeffs reasserts his position as of leadership in the church, and the guy that he had put in as I guess temporarily, the name was Nielsen, he was removed. So then when he comes back into place, that's when you see him saying things along the lines of, I don't want I don't want my followers to be having sex with each other, no more marriages. He basically made it so the FLDS sect of the Latter-day Saints were no longer having children, we're no longer getting married. Polygamy was not a thing. So yes. Since then, though, he still has regained the FLDS as being president, but there is still separate subgroups of the FLDS that have branched off. And there was even a documentary about one of them on Netflix that I really recommend that you check out. That was run by Sam Bateman, and that one was really fucked up. Now, Jeffs has also been known to make several anti-black public statements since 2002. Let me see exactly what I can say, because he's very racist. I can't read any of this. Basically, he says that the devil runs through the earth through black people. That's what he says. That's the summed up version. That's the nice version. So, not a good guy. Oh, by the way, did I mention the part where I said he had multiple underage wives? Oh, yeah. Right. Now, next up on the list, we have an interesting one. It's the Kirtland cult. Oh. I have a bump in my throat. You ever had a bubble and you drink and it goes away and you're like, yeah. Whew. Okay. So, the Kirtland cult. In 1984, this guy, Jeff over here, had relocated his family to Kirtland and started as a tour guide in the historic Kirtland Temple, built by Joseph Smith in 1836. He became a church leader and eventually became a senior temple guide, a non-paying position, but it provided housing for him and his family. And in this capacity, he taught the classes on the Bible and the Book of Mormon. So this place, the Kirtland Temple, something interesting about it that made it like different from like a normal Mormons was they also kind of wanted to align with some of the things that were in the Christianity, like the religion of Christianity. So they made this Kirtland Temple place, which was like a kind of in-between thing. As a temple guide, though, Jeff was known to solicit and allegedly keep money that visitors donated for the church. And then eventually the bookstore noticed like a shortage of funds, but they never made like a huge deal about it. They just kind of like confronted him and was like, to no. Then through his classes, he actually began attracting followers of his own. So he started calling this so remember how we were just talking about the FLDS? So this group would call themselves the RLDS. So they're the retroactive something, or yeah, it's like the retroactive Jesus Christ group of Latter-day Saints. That's what it is. But so he started considering himself to be part of the RLDS, which he had always been, like he grew up in that part of things. But the RLDS original people were hella uncomfortable with how liberal his social policies were. So in 1987, he basically rented a farmhouse where they could like live communally, and so like the members who didn't want to associate with him like stayed at the Kirtland Temple, and then the ones who did want to associate with him like moved to the commune, and they started calling him dad and forfeiting their paychecks to him. Among this group was a small Midwestern family named the Averys. This family included a 49-year-old Dennis Avery, his wife Cheryl, who was 46, and their 3 daughters, Trina, who was 15, Rebecca, 13, and a 7-year-old Karen. Unlike the other members, the Averys, though, lived on their own, and that they kept some of the money when they sold their house. They didn't give every bit of their earnings to the Lundgrens, so they didn't like that. Jeff really didn't like Dennis, and he thought that Cheryl was extremely independent for a woman and that the children were disobedient as a whole. His sermons by around this time as well were becoming like increasingly apocalyptic and paranoid, and he insisted that some of the group start doing firearms training. Then he told his followers that he would bring them to Zion, which was a holy state of being where they would return to see Jesus Christ. And by 1989, he started saying the only way the group would reach Zion was by selling off their worldly possessions and retreating into the wilderness. No shock, no surprise, the Averys, who were like fully with him, went with him. They said, we'll go wherever the journey takes us. But what they didn't know was that he had basically, Jeff had set up for them to be a blood sacrifice. Now, this was the biggest reason that the Kirtland Temple wanted to separate from Jeff to begin with, because him and his brother could never disagree about the fact that he wanted this blood sacrifice thing, because it was something that I guess has been mentioned in the LDS religion, but it was taken out. Like, it's no longer a part of it. But as RLDS, they definitely didn't want a part of it, but he's saying as his version of RLDS, he still wanted blood sacrifice, if that makes sense. So purely by coincidence, the police ended up finding the bodies, but let's go ahead and get into how they got killed. So on the night of April 17th, 1989, the Averys were invited over to the farmhouse where his followers lived. They were led out one by one to the barn behind the house, bound and gagged, and thrown into a 6-by-7-foot pit dug out of the dirt floor, and then shot 2 or 3 times with a .45 caliber semi-automatic weapon. Lundgren was helped by his 19-year-old son, Damon, and group members Ronald Luff, Daniel Kraft, Richard Brand, and Greg Winship. The police, coincidentally, were already on the case of this weird cult happenings there. They had heard, like, rumors of abuse and complaints from neighbors about improper use of firearms. So they searched the barn, unaware that they were literally walking on the graves of the family. And then they left speaking to the group. And Lundgren had like told them like, hey, like we need to leave immediately and make our way to Missouri. Well, even crazier was somebody like told the police, they were like, hey, like the bodies, they were there, so they ended up getting them, like they ended up arresting them at that time. And then besides Lundgren's wife and son, 10 other members of the cult were indicted on charges related to the murder, and 5 members of the Avery family would plead guilty in cooperation with a prosecution in exchange for lighter sentences. And so that disbanded the entire thing. And by the way, this all started over them just fighting over who could stay in the church, because they couldn't agree over blood sacrifice. Shouldn't be something we're fighting over. I feel like blood sacrifice just shouldn't be it. Crazy, right? But let's go ahead and jump into this next one. And I'd say this of cults is one of the more known about cults. Like, you guys have definitely probably heard about this one before. It's called the Heaven's Gate cult. Oh, there's my vape. I was like, where'd I put that shit? So, this one is led by this man here, Marshall Applewhite. And he was... excuse me. And so he was basically known for having like New Age, similarly Christian in nature kind of values. The beliefs paralleled like ancient astronaut theories, and Heaven's Gate interpreted the Bible as recorded events of extraterrestrial contact. So yeah. Initially, recruits had been told that they would be biologically and chemically transported into extraterrestrial beings that would be transported aboard a spacecraft, which would come to Earth and take them to heaven, the next level. But then, when Bonnie Lou Nettles died of cancer in 1985, the group's doctrine was entirely rewritten because Nettles' body was chosen by the next level to be a messenger on Earth. Yet her body has died instead of like going to space. So they're all like looking at him like, okay, Marshall, well, you told us like she was one of us, so like why is she dead? So their belief system had to be revisited to include leaving the consciousness of body as the equivalent to leaving Earth in the spacecraft. So the group declared that it was no longer like, or that it was against suicide because in its own context, committing lure lie would basically turn you against the next level when it's being offered. So if you were to hurt yourself, you would basically be stopping the spacecraft from picking you up, if that makes sense. They believed that their bodies were only vehicles which were meant to help them on their journey, and therefore by committing they would not allow their consciousness to leave their human bodies, and they would get stuck in the vehicle like when a car gets stuck in the lake. They said they would rather be alive rather than participate in group because was considered of their consciousness. In conversations, when they referred to the body, they kept using vehicle over and over and over and over again. So they believed that to be eligible for this next level thing, you would have to shed every attachment to the planet. So that meant they had to give up all their human-like characteristics such as family, friends, gender, sexuality, individuality, jobs, money, and possessions. At the next level, beings do not engage in sexual intercourse, eating, or dying, the things that make humans mammalian. So they believed that God is a highly developed extraterrestrial, and that members and that they also believed in evil space aliens, Luciferians, falsely representing themselves as God, and conspired to keep humans from developing. And so they would do these like tests to see if you were a Luciferian or not. And then as technology advanced humanoids, these aliens have spacecraft, space-time travel, telepathy, and increased longevity, and that they use holograms to fake miracles. Are you with me? It's hard to keep up on this one. Straza Mill said, beam me up, Scotty. No, real. Now, Although these basic beliefs of the group generally stayed consistent, the ideas were like flexible enough to go like switch around, like with the Bonnie Nettles thing. Now, according to Heaven's Gate, there was once an individual had like perfected the process. There were 4 methods to either graduate or enter the next level. So the first option would be physical pickup onto a Tala spacecraft. And then the rapture would happen, and then the aliens of spacecraft would descend to Earth, collect Applewhite Nettles and their followers, and the human bodies would be transferred to the biological and chemical process of perfect beings, right? Okay, but since Nettles died, that's not an option anymore. So the next option is natural death, accidental death, or death from a random violence. The graduating soul leaves the body, or leaves the human container, okay, for the next perfected body. Then the next way is outside persecution that leads to death. After the deaths of the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas, and the things that happened at Ruby Ridge, he was afraid that the government would murder the members of Heaven's Gate. So he said that if you died that way, you were still good. Also, a willful exit from the body in a dignified manner. So Applewhite had a revelation that they might have to abandon their human bodies and achieve the next level as Jesus had done. And now we got to get into what happened. So I'm sure you can see in the one photo where it looks like it's 2 bodies. That is 2 bodies. When he had this revelation, here, I'll give you the exact rundown of how it happened. Sorry, I have another page for this one. So basically, he had them ingest, I'm trying to find the name of it. I had it on here written. Where the hell did it go? He had them ingest, it starts with the P. It was in October 1969. He had, where is it? Phenobarbital. He had them take lethal doses of phenobarbital mixed into applesauce or pudding. Also consumed vodka in a fatal overdose combined with the barbiturates. And then, so he would have he would do these in 3 waves. All 39 people were dressed in identical black shirts, sweatpants, brand new black and white Nike Adidas Decades athletic shoes, and an armband patch reading Heaven's Gate away team. Each member carried a $5 bill and 3 quarters in their pockets. According to former members, this was standard for member leaving the home for jobs as a humorous way to tell us that they had all left the planet permanently. The $5 bill was for covering the cost of vagrancy laws, and the quarters were for calling us home from payphones. Other former members stated that it was a reference to a Mark Twain story, which said that the $5.75 was the cost of the tale of a comet to heaven. No such passage from the writings of Twain is known to exist. After a member died, a living member would arrange the body by removing the plastic bag from the person's head, followed by posing the body so that it laid neatly on its own, with the faces and torsos covered in a square purple cloth for privacy. Two members who were not in the area when it happened said that the identical clothing was a uniform representing unity, while the Nike Decades were chosen because the group got a good deal on the shoes. Applewhite was also a fan of Nikes, and therefore everyone was expected to wear and like Nikes within the group. I don't like this one. So, yeah, that's pretty much that when it comes to Heaven's Gate. There's quite a bit of documentaries on this. The picture of all the people, that is every single person who was taken from this tragedy. So, one of the biggest mass tragedies to ever come from a cult in the history of America. Now, there is some major ones that we won't be covering in this one today. Like, we won't cover, like, Jonestown or Waco, just because I feel like they're pretty commonly known. But if you want me to cover them, if I do a part 2 of this, I could definitely do that. Just let me know. but we still need to get to 250 likes. But I'll give it a few days. If this video gets 100 or 250 likes at any point, I'll definitely do it. All right, now let's go ahead and skip ahead. Next up, this one is interesting. I had actually not heard much about this one, but I knew the name of it, and I didn't really know how crazy it got until I started looking into it. So this one's called the Anthill Kids. Roque Therault, I don't actually know how to pronounce it, is a self-proclaimed prophet under the name Moses. Founded the Anthill Kids in 1977. Now, this was a doomsday cult, and their beliefs were based on those of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He convinced this group of people to leave their jobs and their homes to join him in this religious movement, and he formed the cult in 1977 in Ste. Marie, Quebec, with the goal to form a commune where people could freely listen to his motivational speeches, live in unity, and be free of sin. He prohibited the group from remaining in contact with their families. Now, his fear of the end of the world kept growing, claiming that God had warned him that it was going to be on February of 1979. He made the commune start preparing for this, and in preparation, he moved his commune by hiking to a mountainside that he called the Eternal Mountain in the sparsely populated area of the Gaspé Peninsula, where he claimed they could all be saved. He made the commune build their own town while he relaxed, comparing them to ants working on an anthill, which is how they got the name the Anthill Kids. In February 1979, when the apocalypse did not occur, people started questioning his wisdom, but he defended himself by saying that his time on Earth and the time that happens here and the time that happens in God's world are not the same. So it's not his fault that he just slightly miscalculated, but it was coming and they needed to be prepared for it. So, to expand the community as well and keep members devoted, he married and impregnated all of the women in the commune. If you were a woman and you came in the commune, you were with him and you were married to him and you were having kids with him. He fathered over 20 children with 9 different female members of the group. And by the 1980s, there were nearly 40 members, and followers were made to wear identical tunics to represent equality and devotion to the commune. Following the cult's formation, he began to move away from being a motivational leader as his drinking problem started getting worse and started forcing totalitarian beliefs over people. God, I needed water. And started forcing totalitarian beliefs over people. Members were not allowed to speak with each other when he was not present, and they were never allowed to have sex without his permission. If a person wanted to leave the commune, he would hit them with either a belt or a hammer or suspend them from the ceiling and pluck off each one of their body hairs one by one. Or shit on them. They raised money for this place by selling baked goods, and the members who didn't sell enough were also punished. Over time, the punishments became somehow worse, including making members break their own legs with sledgehammers, sit on lit stoves, shoot each other in the shoulders, and eat dead mice. A follower would sometimes be asked to cut off another follower's toes with wire cutters to prove loyalty. Then the children were actually abused, held over fires, nailed to trees while other children threw stones at them. One of the wives of him literally decided she'd rather leave her baby outside in freezing temperatures to die than to take the abuse of him. So that's what she did. He attempted to backtrack the original mission of the commune and strongly believed in purifying the followers and ridding them of their sins through abusive purification sessions where the members would be completely nude as he whipped and beat them. He claimed to be a holy being and started performing unnecessarily amateur surgical operations on sick members to show that he had healing powers. These surgeries included injecting 94% ethanol solution into stomachs or performing circumcisions on any one of the group, any age. In 1987, social workers removed 17 of the children from the commune. However, he faced no repercussions for his abusive acts. And then in 1989, when Solange Boillard complained of an upset stomach, he performed an amateur surgery without anesthesia, laid her naked on the table, punched her in the stomach, forced a plastic tube into her bum, and performed a crude enema with molasses and olive oil. He cut open her abdomen with a knife and ripped out part of her intestines with his bare hands. He made another member stitch her up using a needle and thread and had other women shove a tube down her throat and blow through it. She died the next day from the procedure. He claimed, though, to have powers of resurrection, so he had his followers saw off the cap of her skull and relieved himself on her brain. When she didn't come to life, they buried her corpse like nothing happened. It's fucked, bro. It's real bad. Smack Boothby said, gotcha, I just joined. That was a terrible time to just join. Then, I'd read the next story, but it's just as bad. And I think from the last story, you guys got the gist, right? Right? I don't need to keep reading it? Right. So, in 1989, he was arrested for assault after one of the other people fled the commune and contacted the authorities about what he had done to her. He specifically, there's multiple victims. Yeah, the thing is, her story is part of what got him arrested. So basically, he attempted to kill her. That's the best way to put it. He tried to burn her. He tried to cut off parts of her body. He tried to beat her with the blunt side of an axe, and she made it out and escaped. And then authorities had suspicions about him already due to the weird living conditions and stuff, because they're on the side of a mountain. It's not like they're close to anybody. But they were legally unable to investigate the adults and could not do much except ensure the welfare of the children. So he was found guilty of assault for the amputation of her arm and received the sentence of 12 years imprisonment, but the vast majority of the followers had already abandoned him after his arrest. Although during his imprisonment, he still fathered 4 more children with remaining female members during conjugal visits. In 2011, at the age of 63, he was found dead near his cell at the Dorchester Penitentiary. His death is believed to be the result of an altercation with his cellmate, Matthew Jared MacDonald, a 60-year-old convicted murderer from Port-au-Port, Newfoundland, and Labrador, who was charged with the killing. Yeah. And that's the story of the Anthill Kids. And why don't you hear that story much? Because it's so graphic, and it's so fucked up, and it's so dark. I don't even think they could make a documentary on that if they wanted to. It's crazy. Now, I'd say that is probably the darkest of the dark. And the reason I didn't put it at the bottom is because it was a very small cult. The next ones we're going to get into are ones that had so many members that when shit went bad, it affected a lot of people. So this next one we have, actually, I would say the group wasn't even the reason that things went wrong. I'd say it was the government of Philadelphia who actually caused more harm than the group itself. So this is the MOVE organization. So the MOVE organization describes itself as a family of strong, seriously, deeply committed revolutionaries founded by a wise, perceptive, strategically minded black man named John Africa. So John Africa was a veteran of the Korean War who had been born as Vincent Lopez Leopard and started the group in the early 1970s. And the group's philosophies were an unusual mix of flower power and protesting against the enslavement of animals, eating raw food, and adopting communal style living, and also black power. So he almost was like the foundation for Nature Boy before Nature Boy was a thing, right? So this is like the OG Nature Boy kind of idealistic. Like, this is definitely what he wanted his thing to be. So members of the group, which do still exist today, the group is still active and running, all take on the last name Africa to show they are a unified family to pay reverence to the founder and their ancestral roots. The political and religious organization, often described as a back to nature movement, adopted the principles that were anti-government, anti-technology, and anti-corporation. In the 1970s, group members lived together in the home in Powelton Village, collectively caring for their children. They also looked after stray dogs in the area, but the group's lifestyle definitely affected why things went down the way it did. So they would basically set up these stages outside of their house and go out on these bullhorns, which is what you're seeing in this like top middle photo. So that was right in front of their house. So they're out there with rifles, with bullhorns, and screaming about like shit in the middle of a residential neighborhood, right? So definitely the neighbors were not fucking with this. And then here we go. Boop, 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 boop. MOVE members say that the dispute between the group and the police began on March 28th, 1976, after MOVE members went to pick up some of their fellow members from jail. And Louise Africa said during the altercation that officers knocked Janine Africa to the ground, apparently crushing her baby's skull. The 3-week-old baby she had named Life died later that day in her arms, and the baby had been born at the house and didn't have a birth certificate. MOVE members said that they called council members and members of the media out to view the baby's body, but no autopsy was ever conducted to confirm the cause of the death. So this is what starts the biggest war Philadelphia has ever seen. So city officials and police knew that tensions were rising because MOVE members began using the bullhorn to profess their often crazily against the police views on the streets. They were armed with guns. They built fences and barricades around the property, boarded up the windows of the house, and neighbors said they wanted to see the group evicted, but they continued to stay put, standing outside of their homes, constantly like firing rifles in the air. Like it's not like it's just annoying. It's also getting dangerous because they're literally dry firing. They're literally firing rifles just in the air. In 1976, there was a spark that ignited a long-standing feud. So the city officials versus the police, like things had like kept fucking going. Things were heating up, and then that's when in 1978, the police not the police, but the guy who's in charge of the police ordered a blockade that would prevent any food or water from getting to the home for 56 days. As the standoff continued, MOVE demanded that some of its members be released from jail, while the city demanded that the members clean up the house or move. For a period of 90 days in the summer of 1978, it seemed like a truce might be ready for MOVE but they even got them to hand over like some of their weapons that were like inoperable, and they were going to release the city jail members until the morning of August 8th at 6 a.m. Heavily armed police doused the home with water using a water cannon that shot into the basement where the MOVE members, including 12 adults, 11 children, and 48 dogs, had sought refuge. They basically flooded out the basement and forced them to get out. A short time later, at 8:15 a.m., a shot rang out, setting off a hail of gunfire that killed Officer James Rump, and another 18 police officers and firefighters were hurt during the incident. MOVE maintained that Rump was killed as the result of friendly fire, but authorities argued that MOVE members had fired the fatal shot and the shooting stopped. Adults and children were taken from the basement. Delbert Africa was one of the members later convicted in the killing, emerged shirtless and unarmed with his hands outstretched, but he was viciously beaten by 3 police officers, which is the photo that you see in the bottom right. That's actually Delbert Africa. And Smack Boothby said 48 dogs. Well, the reason they had all these dogs is because they were known for like breaking into facilities where they did animal research testing and like breaking out the animals. That's like a big thing that the MOVE, like that, one of their biggest things was animal safety. Do I know why they had all 48 dogs in the basement that day? No, but I know that that's why they had them. The 3 dogs, the 3 cops were arrested and charged with beating Delbert Africa, but a judge would later throw the case out. 9 members of the group, including Mike Africa Jr.'s parents, Debbie Africa and Mike Africa, were ultimately convicted of 3rd-degree murder and sentenced 30 to 100 years in prison for killing. Rump had been killed by 1 bullet, but 9 members were collectively charged for 1 death, which also made things worse. The deadly siege would not end the conflict. After their Powelton Village house was destroyed, they relocated to 62221 Osage Ave. They complained that the group had left trash around the home, got into conflicts, just the usual shit they had going on before. Profane stuff within earshot of police, just like overall general like nuisance stuff outside. So Good, who was in charge of Philadelphia at the time, gave the order to evict the group. But the conflict would not go the way they expected. Excuse me. So on May 12th, 1985, nearby residents were told they need to leave the home because they are about to get into another standoff with MOVE. And after what happened last time, they didn't even want to have residents nearby. So on the next day, May 13th, 1985, close to 500 police officers swarmed the block, armed with machine guns, SWAT gear, armed with warrants for like several different members that they thought were there. They were given 15 minutes to come out of the bunker they had built in the home, but the members did not come out and instead began to fire at the police. So police retaliated, firing 10,000 rounds of ammunition in the compound over 90 minutes. Then at 5:27 p.m., authorities dropped a bomb that police had made of plastic explosives on the roof of the row house that started a fire. As the fire began to spread, police ordered the firefighters to let it burn. The fire ultimately destroyed 61 homes, leaving more than 250 fucking residents homeless. 5 children, 6 adults, including MOVE founder John Africa, were passed away in this tragedy. Only 2 people in the entire MOVE headquarters survived the bombing. Like, how fucking nuts, bro? Our government was like, yeah, we don't really like that. These people are outside yelling with their bullhorns. Let's just bomb them. Like, I know that they were definitely, like, the shooting guns, like, and shit like that obviously fucked up. But that was the police bombing them. And then to all those 250 people that lost their lives that day, like, everything that they had, insane. A commission would later determine that the bombing had been reckless and ill-conceived, but no one was ever criminally charged for the attack. And then, the Philadelphia City Council unanimously passed a resolution to formally apologize for the bombing. And all surviving MOVE members who were jailed for the 1978 incident are now out on parole. So they said, sorry, we'll let you out of jail, but like, that's about it. Crazy ass shit, bro. But yeah, that's the general consensus of like what happened with MOVE. They are still active. They're still running. They still operate out of Philadelphia, believe it or not. So yeah, if you ever want to check them out. Barely functional, so but even then they're on parole. Yeah, exactly. I think we've only got 2 left, if I'm correct. We do. We're on the last 2, guys. If any of you guys got any questions or anything you wanted to ask, by the way, at the end of this, I will give a little bit of time for, like, questions and stuff in case I missed anything while I was running through some of these. But just definitely let me know if you've been enjoying this stream so far, if you're into, like, this deep dive on some of these cults, if this is something you want me to do going forward, maybe with a different topic. But if we get to 250 likes on this stream in the next, like, 24 hours, I'll do a part 2 to this. Thank you, Barely. Thank you, Shraz. I'm glad you guys are enjoying. Just taking a quick little vape break now that I know we're at the end. It makes me feel a lot better. I've been, like, rushing through this because I was like, oh, no, I don't want to run out of time. Not like I have time to run out of. Like, I've already been going for 2.5 hours. Honestly, though, it feels like I've been here for 30 minutes. Smack Boothby said, imagine facing your own morality actively for 2 hours, not knowing if you're going to be shot or cooked alive. Real. That's so real. Dude, some of these are actually crazy. And I'm telling you, the last one, like, I'll put a trigger warning now. The last one, there's just so much death, so much crazy shit that happens in the last one. The second to last one, I'd say maybe isn't even as crazy. I don't know. All the ones that the last 2 both happen in Mexico, and the ones that happen in Mexico are a little crazy. So this next one, the one that we're currently looking at in this picture, this is actually the Church of the Lamb of God, which I didn't know that they had Mormons in Mexico, but they got Mormons in Mexico. So this was a violent Latter-day Saint fringe group founded by Orville LeBaron in the late 1960s. When Joseph Smith founded the Latter-day Saint movement, Benjamin F. Johnson was one of his earliest followers, and Johnson followed the church's original teachings and practiced polygamy, taking multiple wives. When the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints renounced polygamy, Johnson and his family, like...
Surprise, motherfucker!
Sending you my monthly money's smile, also loving the new hair color. Also hot dog, hot dog, hot dog, hot dog, Smokies.
We'll hit a mustard for that. I love that shit. And thank you so much, Mel. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for showing all the love today. I worked really hard on this one, so you guys are making me feel really good. You guys are making me feel really good. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so this is one of those also, like, similar to the one, some of the other ones we talked before that are FL or LDS branch off, similar like to FLDS, or like some of the other ones that we talked about, like the what was it, Kirtland one. This, they wanted polygamy. They just wanted their fucking polygamy, and they wanted to practice it. So in 1924, Johnson's grandson, Alma Dayer LeBaron Sr., moved his family to Mexico, where the government showed no interest in prosecuting polygamists, settling near Colonia Juarez, Chihuahua. I'd love the fucking, I'm probably butchering these, but Chihuahua, like, that's such a good name. So in the late 1960s, Orville began preaching against Joel, which was his brother, who was like, okay, so basically, the father, the Alma Dayer LeBaron Sr., decided that Joel was going to be his successor, but Orville was not fucking with that. So Orville began preaching against Joel, accusing his brothers of crime against their faith, proclaiming that he was the true successor to his father, and Orville began the Church of the Lamb of God and named himself as the president. Tensions began to rise, and Joel rejected Orville's advocacy for the return to the formal principle of blood atonement. Blood atonement. Again, they're fighting over this goddamn blood sacrifice shit. What's up with the Mormons? Why are these Mormon families being like, one brother wants the blood sacrifice and the other one doesn't? It's crazy that we got 2 cults that formed from this. Like, 2 nickels. It's crazy that it happened twice. Anyways, so the blood atonement, by the way, which requires a sinner to must have their blood shed in order for them to earn a place in heaven, effectively required the death penalty. So Joel didn't like that. But to Ervil's surprise, Joel's followers did not flock to his side. Instead, they advocated for Ervil's arrest. Well, yeah, because you want a blood sacrifice. And during his imprisonment, Ervil continued to release pamphlets and booklets insisting that he was the Mormon one mighty and strong, and that. And as God's representative on earth, he could decide who should die for their sins. So he began to focus on executing his other brother, Verlin, who Joel had elected the new leader of the cult. Or not like the cult, because at this point it wasn't a cult, like it was just a Mormon offset. The cult is what Ervil's doing. So basically Joel put up a new leader for the church, which was his brother Verlin, and Verlin started fearing for his life, so he went into hiding. And then on December 26, 1974, in an effort to flush him out, Ervil's underage 13-year-old wife, Raina Shinawin, and her brothers Mark and Duane raided Los Melonos. And the party threw firebombs at the house, shot at residents, killing 2 young men and injuring 13. But they fucked up because Verlin had literally moved his families out of the church's colony all the way to Nicaragua. So they just killed 15 people for nothing. Ervil was arrested for masterminding the raid, but was released due to lack of evidence. By the way, if you guys research this, there's going to be a million cases in between some of the big ones that I'm hitting that happened, but I literally couldn't hit them all with this one because there was too many. So increasingly upset by the violence, Noemi Zarate, a wife of Bud Chinaweth, threatened to leave Ervil's church and go to the police. So Bud Chinaweth is the father of Ervil's 2 wives. So Ervil's wives are both sisters, okay? The dad's Bud. The mother of Ervil's wives, Noemi, was going to go snitch. So Ervil orders his 10th wife, Vonda White, to drive Naomi into the desert and kill her. Her body has never been found. Following his release from prison, Ervil moved part of his family to San Diego, California. And he wrote letters and visited many polygamous leaders, threatening their lives if they did not switch their allegiance to his church and tithe accordingly. Robert Simmons, a leader of a small polygamous sect in Utah, denounced Ervil after learning he wanted to marry one of Simmons' wives. Simmons was murdered in April of 1975 by Mark Chinaweth and Eddie Marston on Ervil's orders. Shocker. They couldn't marry his daughter, so he's like, dead, you gotta die. In 1977, Ervil ordered the death of his pregnant teenage daughter, Rebecca, the wife of Mark Chinaweth. Angry that she had been separated from her infant son, Rebecca threatened to go to the police about the group's activities, and a witness later testified that Rebecca's body was stuffed into the trunk of a car that Ervil drove around town for the afternoon. Ervil eventually was captured in Mexico and tried and convicted in the U.S. for planning Alred's murder, and it was the first time he had ever been charged with a crime in the U.S. Ain't that some shit? Ain't that some shit? And by the way, how many murders did I list off there? Like probably at least 20, and that's not all it. There was more in that case. So if you guys want to hear the full case of the Church of the Lamb of God, definitely check it out for yourself. I don't think there's any documentaries because once again, it's one of those ones where it's really brutal. But definitely check it out. There's crazy shit. So the last one that we have on our list for today is the narco-Satanists. And this, I would say, is by far one of the darkest cults I've ever researched. So the narco-Satanists were a notorious 1980s cult led by Cuban-American serial killer Adolfo Constanzo and Sarah Aldrete. I probably am butchering these. These are very much names I don't know how to pronounce. Operating primarily out of Matamoros, Mexico. The group performed ritualistic human sacrifices, blending Palo Mayombe, dark magic, and cartel violence to grant them supposed immunity from the police. Others refer to them as the Matamoros cult, for the border town where their compound was located, or simply Palo Mayombe, the name for the Afro-Cuban religion they warped to their own bloody hands. Okay, so this was led by Adolfo Constanzo and his witch, Sarah. They are responsible for 15 murders, possibly more. Their victims were tortured and then ritualistically slain. Human sacrifices, they believe, bestowed supernatural powers upon them and their associates in Mexico's infamous drug cartels. So this is why this one is the worst, is because not only does this start off as a cult, they get linked up with the cartel of Mexico when things get real crazy. So Adolfo was born in Miami, Florida in 1962, and his mother was a Cuban immigrant, and both she and Adolfo's grandmother were said to be Santeras, which are priestesses in the Santeria religion, which, if you don't know what Santeria is, I'll give you the Google definition because I don't want to be wrong. Santeria is an Afro-Cuban religion that blends West African Yoruba traditions with Roman Catholicism. Developed in Cuba during the slave trade, enslaved Africans syncretized their traditional deities with Catholic saints to preserve their faith under Spanish colonial rule. Practitioners believe in a supreme creator and a pantheon of powerful intermediate spirits called orishas. Each orisha rules over a specific aspect of nature and is associated with a specific Catholic saint, color, and number. The goal of Santeria is to live in alignment with one's destiny. Deities are revered through offerings, prayers, and community ceremonies to maintain balance and correct life's imbalances. Hold up. Let me ask this something. Okay, so Santeria is not considered traditional witchcraft, but it is a complex Afro-Caribbean religion. So it does use rituals. And a lot of people will say that Santeria is similar to witchcraft and magic. However, it is structured as a religion. It's led by priests, and it's complete with its own theology, moral codes, all that. So, it definitely is a recognized religion, which is the difference between calling it witchcraft, which is why I said I wanted to look up the definition, because I know it falls in line with witchcraft, but it technically isn't. So, both his mother and his grandmother were said to be Santeras. In Miami, Constanzo's neighbors complained of dead animals being left at their door after confrontations with his family. His mother was later arrested for harboring 27 animals in her small apartment, which had floors smeared with blood and feces. So that tells you his upbringing. Now we're going to get into how he met Sarah. So Constanzo studied voodoo and Palo Mayombe, which traces his roots back to Congo River Basin. In Palo Mayombe, offerings are made to the gods in a ceremonial cauldron known as the NGA. I'm not saying that. I'm literally not saying that. I'm going to type it in the chat because, literally, how the fuck would you pronounce this? How the fuck do you pronounce this? But, it contains consecrated sticks and bones. While these are most often sourced from animals, followers of the Palo Mayombe have been blamed for grave robberies, including the theft and bones of parts of 3 South Florida cemeteries in 2018. Interesting. So, Constanzo had worked as a male model before he moved to Mexico City, and he began offering spiritual cleansing and magic spells to the city's elite, including celebrities and politicians. Drug cartels also sought him out for this mystical protection during smuggling runs and turf wars. He was also known to be openly bisexual, having both male and female lovers, and they all referred to him as El Padrino, known as the Godfather. And that's how he met a pretty college student named Sarah Aldrete, who would become his second in command, known as La Madrina, the Godmother. Aldrete was a straight-A student and a cheerleader for the soccer team. She was also fascinated by the occult, and she knew people in the Mexican drug trade through a friend, Serafin Hernandez Garcia, who also went to school with her. The Hernandezes were members of a large family with relatives on either side of the border who made their money smuggling marijuana, and Mexican authorities claimed that at the height of their power, they smuggled as much as a ton per week, and that their distribution network stretched all the way from Mexico to Michigan. So that's how she was involved with the cartel. So presiding over this criminal enterprise was Saul Hernandez Rivera, which was Elio's older brother. Following the 1987 assassination, the family was beset by arrests and infighting, and Elio emerged as the gang's new leader and turned to Constanzo for supernatural help and guidance, and Aldret took part in the initial ceremony. So Elio is the brother of Sarah, of Sarah Finn, who Sarah met at college. So that's how Sarah got in with all this drug cartel stuff, is because Elio ended up taking over the cartel when Elio's brother passed. So the members of the gang fell under Constanzo's sway, and he became their high priest and further enmeshed himself in their operations, performing ritualistic animal sacrifices that he claimed would help their businesses prosper and protect them from police and bullets. Constanzo and his followers eventually set up operations at Rancho Santa Elena, a property owned by the Hernandez family and the Matamoros, and less than a mile from the border. According to Constanzo, the greater sacrifice, the greater power it bestowed. Soon he was demanding human victims to offer up for the gods. The cult's first victims were rivals in the drug trade, members of other gangs, or corrupt cops who were brought back to the ranch where they were tortured and ritualistically slain. Body parts were put in the NGA, and boiled, making a foul brew that cult members then drank, believing it made them invisible and bulletproof. Some wore necklaces made from their victims' vertebrae. Constanzo made Elio an executioner priest, branding his chest and his arms with sacred marks. Hernandez once ordered his henchmen to bring him the first male that they could find for sacrifice, and it was only after lopping off his hooded victim's head with a machete that he realized he had killed one of his own nephews. I was like, yeah, bring me somebody for sacrifice. The first one you can find. They grab his nephew, and he doesn't even realize until after he cuts his head off. That's so, and bro didn't even care. In March of 1989, Constanzo ordered his followers to bring him an Anglo male for his next human sacrifice, and he believed that the offering would grant even greater supernatural powers to himself and his followers. And in the early morning hours of March 14th, cult members snatched Kilroy, which is who is in the bottom middle picture there, the white guy in the bottom middle picture, that's Kilroy, off a side street in the Matamoros where he had been bar hopping. He was taken back to the ranch, possibly tortured and sodomized, then slain by Constanzo with a machete chop to the back of the head. Unfortunately for Constanzo and his followers, they could have hardly picked a worse victim because Kilroy's uncle was a special agent with the U.S. Customs Service. So this was immediately investigated by multiple law enforcement from both countries. Although, here's the issue, is because he's been doing all of this witchcraft, Adolfo believed himself to be invisible. And him and Serafin Hernandez Garcia drove past the police roadblock in Matamoros on April 1st, 1989, and authorities gave chase, and he led them straight back to Rancho Santa Elena, which is where he has all of the cult members right now. In the initial search of the property, they turned up with 65 pounds of marijuana, a ritual shed which contained Constanzo's NGA thing, the altar where he commits his little witchcraft. And Mexican police allegedly refused to continue the investigation until a healer known as a curandero, I don't know how to pronounce it, but until a hero as a curandero came and purified the site to cast out any evil spirits, and then a caretaker on the property also said that Kilroy that he recognized Kilroy from a photograph. So he was the one who led police to the body where they found Kilroy. His body was exhumed along with 14 others, and by April 13th, Elio and Serafin Hernandez and 2 other gang members have been arrested and confessed to multiple murders. Meanwhile, Adolfo and Sarah, the 2 in the top left, are on the run. So Mexican police eventually tracked him down and her down and several other cult members to an apartment building in Mexico City. And then on May 6, 1989, he spotted the police in a car outside the building, picked up a machine gun, and began firing. Following a 45-minute gun battle, Constanzo ordered De Leon Valdez to shoot him and his lover, Martin Quintana Rodriguez, rather than let them be captured alive. He did as he was told, riddling them with the machine gun fire. And Aldrete was apprehended as she tried to flee the apartment. He said, "Let's all die, but I didn't want to die." And in May, that was a quote from her. And in May 1994, Sarah Aldrete was sentenced to 62 years in prison. At the same time, Elio and Serafin Hernandez and the other 2 cult members were sentenced to 67 years in prison, and it was later reduced to a 50-year sentence in 1998. And that is the story of the Narco Satanist. Now, as you can see, this one also has an HBO documentary. I believe the whole documentary is in Spanish, so it's like one of those ones that you either gotta like really pay attention to and read the captions, or they have like a English version of it. But definitely check it out because there's a lot to get into with it. But yeah, I think that's that. Let me go ahead and switch over to my full screen. That took up almost 3 hours, y'all. How are we feeling about the cult Iceberg? Do you feel like I ordered everything right? Do you feel like there's anything that you would have switched the order maybe? I don't know. Let me know what you think. I would maybe, if I did it over again, maybe put Anthill Kids a little bit farther down because they're like the 3rd worst and I think they're pretty bad. But it's hard to say. Mel Raffles said, "I loved it." Shraza Mill said, "W stream." I'm glad you guys enjoyed this, and thank you again to everybody who donated. Shout out to Rosebud, Hey Hooted, V Midnight, Pollyanna, and Mel Raffle. All of you guys for donating today. I really fucking appreciate it. Also, everybody who's helped me get all the way up to 3K watch hours. Thank you so freaking much. It should only take a few days before it's updated on like the little bar to apply, and then I'll hit the application, and then it takes 3 to 5 days from there. So I'll keep you guys posted. Glitterfart said, "Loved it, but I'm still shooketh." There's a lot to be shooketh from, honestly. I have read and like researched so much cult stuff in my life that I don't want to say like I'm almost desensitized to it, but it's like I've heard so many of these crazy stories, and there's even crazier ones. I still have a list of 16 more cults here that I could definitely hit a part 2 for if this is something that interests you guys. So, yeah. Dave said, "I still don't know which one to join." Well, if you gotta pick a cult to join out of all the ones we listed today, I vote that you join the John from Cargo cult. That one's pretty chill. They're pretty nice. They don't even do anything bad. They just make cool music, man. They just want John Frum to come home. Devastator said, "I only asked for a 25% cut of all wages for my help in getting you to 2,000 watch hours." What, are you keen? I mean, at least it's less than he takes. Hey. Shraza said, "Yes, I was going to say sign me up to that." Like, if there was any cult that, like, if I got the chance to, like, do an interview with, I would, it would be the John Frum cult. They are just so interesting. And, like, the music they make is truly beautiful. And they're, like, really into, like their movement. Like, they gave up their entire, like, lives to live, like, an indigenous lifestyle in a way that was, like, almost, like, respectable. Like, it was so crazy. And, like, they like, push it in. They have pushed their John Frum movement so hard that they were able to get it as a recognized political party on their island. Like, that is pretty cool. That you gotta respect them. Even though there's only 500 of them left, I root for them. Glitterfart said they are really just patient people. Honestly, facts. Barely Functional said, "I would have joined the sandwich cult until I found out their dark shit." Yeah. They seem really nice on the surface, and that's how they present themselves. A lot of these cults that are still up and running, like, their websites present them so differently than any research that you do on them. And, like, some of these cults, like, don't even have, like, Wikipedia pages or, like, for example, that Suki cult that I looked up, I had to, like, really fucking go to, like, the deep parts of the fucking internet to find shit on it. Like, there's some of these that just don't have anything on them. Same with, like, the Kirtland cult. Some of them are just so small and not well known that they don't have as much research available. The one good thing about Wikipedia, though, for people who don't know how to use Wikipedia, it's not the Wikipedia page itself that's good. It's all the links at the bottom of the Wikipedia page to actual articles that will help you find what you're looking for. Dave TH said, if you had to make a cult, what are the rules? Smoke weed every day. Like, that's it. We just smoke weed. And no LCU. Oh, wait, that's what I should put at the bottom, guys. Wait, I forgot the most important cult of them all. Hold on. The bottom of the iceberg. This place. This place is fucking wild, man. This place, bro? You don't even know what they want. You don't even want to know what they do to people. They be having Diddy parties that they call Fat Camp. They be fucking making people pour mustard on themselves. Full ass humiliation rituals. The guy who runs the place will berate you and tell you you're untalented and you suck. This place, they'll do an investigation on it in years to come. The documentary's coming. This is the new age internet cult, y'all. Save yourselves. Save yourselves. Barely Functional said, I think Zay could be a cult leader. Wait a minute now, why? I would not be a cult leader. I feel like that's too much responsibility. There's way too much, like, why would you want a bunch of people who gotta, like, answer to you or, like, ask you for things? I don't want that. I'm like, that's way too much responsibility. It would just be a bunch of stoners who game and share pet pictures. Actually, you know what? That's very fair. If it was that, I'd be all for that. That's the type of cult that I'm trying to be in. See, that's how they get you, though. That's how they get you. You see Nature Boy? That's how he got all his people, because he promoted people under the guise of, well, America sucks right now, and, like, we could all live on this island and just, like, fucking do our thing. And they did for a while. Like, it genuinely was nice there up until things went bad. That's how things always go, bro. It starts off nice and things all look cozy and sweet, and then they get all crazy with it. Mel Raffle said, like the stream, we need more of them. Yes, guys, if we can get to 250 likes on this stream in the next 24 hours, I'll definitely do another one of these. So if I go, like, by the time I stream tomorrow, if this stream is at 250 likes, I'll let you know if I'm doing another one. But regardless, I definitely do want to do more, like, true crimey kind of deep dive things. So if any of you guys have any suggestions, I do have Discord that has a suggestions section. Also, hello, Vaughn899. Welcome in. Strassermill is crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna blow up for mentioning that place is true. That's very true. It's like witchcraft. But anywho, so this is where I'm gonna be ending off today's stream. Since this was a long one, I may or may not do a gaming stream tonight, just because I might want some, like, time to decompress a little bit, because I'm not gonna lie, I've spent so much time working on this stream. It feels good now that it's, like, done and you guys got to see it and you enjoyed it. So yeah, I might take a little bit of time to relax, but if anything, I might just do, like, a short little, like, 1 hour gaming stream tonight or something, but I guess we'll see what happens. Otherwise, I will definitely be back again at 3 p.m. tomorrow. I'm not sure what the stream's gonna be yet, but there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the internet that I've been wanting to talk about, so maybe I'll just do some reaction stuff, but I don't know. I'll keep you posted. But anywho, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with me for today's cult episode. This has been so freaking fun doing it with you guys. Let me see if there's anybody to redirect to. I have no fucking clue. I haven't checked all day. Yeah, Exile's live. I don't know what time. Well, I would redirect to Nightmare, but he's not going live till 8, so yeah, Exile's live. We'll send you to Exile. And shout out to Nightmare again for sending the redirect. Very appreciated. But yeah, Nightmare's gonna be live at 8 if you guys want to go check him out. But until then, I'm sending you guys over to watch some Yoshi with Exile. Have a good one, y'all.